Panasonic.
Papa の嘘つき。パパ嫌い。
パパ聞こえる？発表会のことなんだけど、帰ってこれなくなったってもう1年もよ。彩香の最後の発表会なのに。だったらマサラおじちゃんで登録しとけばよかった。もしもし、聞こえない。なんか途切れ途切れになってる。もしもし、もしもし。
パパの嘘つき。パパ嫌い。私のパパは遠い国にいます。パパは彩香とママのために一生懸命仕事をしてくれるってママが言います。日本にいるときはたくさん遊んでくれます。
ちょっと待ってください。すいません。
動物園に連れて行ってくれたり、おいしいパスタも作ってくれます。パパはお料理が大好きで、パスタだけじゃなくてケーキやたこ焼きも作ってくれます。でもパパは嘘をつきます。電話ではいつも元気だよって言います。本当は一人ぼっちで寂しいのに元気だよって言います。彩香はパパの笑っている顔が大好きです。彩香と一緒にいっぱい笑うパパが大好きです。早く会いたいです。
彩香！
パパ！ひげ生えてる。
Seeing you for who you truly are. Panasonic's cutting-edge facial recognition system for a safer tomorrow.
Panasonic. A better life, a better world.
This is John. He owns a family hotel downtown. The security of his guests is paramount to him, but he is spending a fortune every year on his VMS CCTV system. This is a huge headache for John. Just then, to his luck, Mr. P, a Panasonic representative, is staying at his hotel this summer vacation. John is delighted to learn that Panasonic's VMS has no annual license renewal fee compared to other VMS systems. He is only required to pay for the hardware and server license without additional charges on camera and annual renewal license. Panasonic's VMS system guarantees an enterprise-level reliability, as it was found in Texas, US in 2002 and acquired by Panasonic in 2015. Currently, there are more than 25,000 customers worldwide and growing rapidly. Panasonic's Video Insight supports more than 4,100 camera models. Its pure 64-bit architecture is extremely reliable, with the capability of linking up to 400 cameras per server. In addition, Video Insight supports failover recording function and enhanced data security by DigiCert. Panasonic's Video Insight provides one unified system, and it is capable to integrate additional functions such as Face Pro, license plate recognition, laser sensor, access control, as well as Panasonic Video Analytics integration. With Video Insight VMS system, John is able to get an optimized system for the security of his hotel. Well convinced by Mr. P, John installed the new system and is surprised at how simple and easy the GUI is.
Ooh.
Now he can relax while maintaining a good security system for his hotel. A few years down the road, Mr. P returns to John's hotel for a vacation and bumps into his old friend. He is glad to know
Good day, globally competitive electronics engineers. Good afternoon to all our participants coming from the Philippines and, of course, nearby countries. Good morning to all our Middle East participants. Welcome to the second day of the 71st Annual General Membership Meeting and Convention and the second e-AGM, dubbed as e-AGM 2.0, with a theme of embracing digital transformation in the time of new normal. Before we get started, can I get some thumbs up or heart reaction from our participants just so I know that you can hear and see me well? Ayan. Some of them are sending emojis. And thank you so much to our engaging participants for the day. Thank you so much. I think that is my cue to formally start. By the way, I am Jackie and I will be your moderator for today. I know everyone is very much ecstatic for today's technical session, so I will not make you wait any longer. Let us begin with the invocation to be followed by the national anthem.
Let us all be in the presence of our Lord. Heavenly Father, we come to you this hour, asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we are gathered together to begin the second day of our 71st Annual General Membership Gathering. We pray for your guidance in the matters at hand and ask that you would clearly lead us with a spirit of joy and enthusiasm. Help us to engage in meaningful discussions, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of community. Help us to work together and encourage each other to excellence. Father, although we are meeting virtually, we know that you are here in our midst. We praise you for this event and your purpose for it. We may not have the benefits of face-to-face interactions, but with your grace, we are certain this online meeting would be a success and we can accomplish all our activities with ease. We thank you for allowing us to meet in spite of these dire circumstances. We pray that you bless all officers, members, as well as the participants, and most especially our distinguished speaker for the day, that we may all be attentive in accomplishing our part tonight. Allow us to avoid all our selfish aspirations for the sake of the unity and teamwork of our group. We also pray for your will to be done throughout this event. Take what we have prepared and multiply our efforts as only you can. Steer our intentions to align with your righteous will. May all glory go up to you when we reach until the conclusion of this event. Blanket us with your peace for the rest of the night, Father. Keep us physically safe and guard our hearts and minds from pride and selfishness. We dedicate this meeting to you. We know that this will not all be possible without your divine guidance and permission. This all we ask and thank for. In Jesus' name, amen.
kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang mag-ibig, kaya sa silanganan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang binirang, kuya ka ng mag-ibig, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa nagagang tutok sa simoy at sa langit kong pagaw, ay hinatang tulad, awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nagtitingin, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pang ay di magtitingin. Luman ang araw ng walhati pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya na pagkay mga api, at mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Please be mindful of the following house rules. Find a quiet place and secure a stable internet connection so you can focus on the session. Should you get disconnected while the session is in progress, please rejoin as soon as possible. Please use your full name so that we could properly identify you. Utilize the rename feature on Zoom to change your display name. Be an attentive participant. Unless requested by the moderators, always turn off your webcam and mute the audio of your microphone. Else, you may type in your topic-related questions via the Q&A box on Zoom or the chat or comment box on YouTube. Be respectful and courteous in speaking, writing, and appearance. Steer clear from asking too personal questions or non-subject related questions, and no spamming in the chat box and in the live comments. Kindly accomplish the attendance, quiz, evaluation form, which will be given after the Q&A session. No form completion, no certificate. Keep an open mind and enjoy the webinar.
Once again, welcome to the 71st Annual General Membership Meeting and Convention, or the e-AGM 2.0. This would not have been possible without the initiatives and commitment of all the committees who are still working tirelessly to make this event feasible, even with our current situation that we still had to do it virtually. And of course, we would also like to acknowledge our sponsors who are instrumental in the conduct of this event. Of course, Wireless Link Technologies, AWS Distribution Philippines Corporation, Siemens Energy, Advanced Tech Corporation, Malaysia and AMTI, United Electrical Specialists Incorporated, PT Cerna Corporation, Excel First Review and Training Center, Allied Telesis Philippines Incorporated, Panasonic Business, Infinite Care Technology Solutions, and Sig State Power. Thank you so much for sponsoring this event. And while we are still waiting for the other participants to get in on Zoom, do not forget to like our official Facebook page at IECEP National Official to get updated on the future announcements and events. And also, aside from this session here on Zoom, we are also streaming live on YouTube at IECEP National. So the link of the YouTube, I think, is already posted on the chat box. So while you are watching the live stream on YouTube, or while you are watching the live stream on YouTube, do not forget also to subscribe and click on the notification bell to get notified at all times. And of course, we have official hashtags. Do not forget to use them. We have hashtag IECEP Puso, hashtag IECEP e-AGM 2021, hashtag 1IECEP, and hashtag Mabuhay IECEP. So kung mag-share tayo sa ating socials to let other electronics engineers to be engaged in our event for today, please do not forget to use our official hashtags. Of course, before I talk about what will happen today, let us first dive in and have a quick recap of what transpired during the first day of e-AGM. We had 4 technical sessions from 4 different tracks yesterday. So we have for AI, AIML, and data science robotics. We had Professor Dinakaran Devaraj, and he talked about transformation in robotics in research and development after COVID-19 scenario. We also had engineer Richard R. Matias for the broadcasting and telecommunications track, who made a relevant talk about 5G NR evolution, the road to 6G. That was followed by engineer Aris M. Dayarip, who provided a very informative talk about data-driven quality control tools across industries for the instrumentation and control and micropower electronics tracks. And lastly, we had a very lively ending session with engineer Russell Vincent Torres for the IECEP and the emerging technology, who talked about the role of wireless communications in the oil and gas sector towards digitalization. I know everyone enjoyed yesterday's opening of our 8-day event, but of course, we assure you that today's session will be another exciting and informative day for all of us. So, eto na, what will happen during our today's session? We'll be having 2 technical sessions for the academe, project management, and soft skills track. First session will cover human-centered design thinking framework by Mr. Walter Lee. He will discuss Singapore government adoption of design thinking centered on the 5-step process by Stanford. He will also discuss the IDEO, or the industry recognized standard model about design school. It begins with empathy based on listening to actual client interviews and interactions. That would be followed by engineer Jose Carlos C. Tupaz, the 6th, and he will discuss everything about the project management dilemma, Waterfall versus Agile. He will discuss further the recent advancements in technology require an adaptive project management framework to allow enterprises and organizations to compete in a globalized world. The Agile framework brought a new dimension in executing projects without the traditional role of project manager. So, again, if you're really interested about these 2 topics, do not forget to stay here on Zoom or watch us on our live stream on YouTube. But before we proceed with our first technical session, let me just remind you again of our house rules that we watched earlier. Be reminded na if we want to have an organized and yung mafollow natin yung ating time for today, let us be reminded of those few house rules. Now, hindi na natin patatagalin pa. Moving right along, let us now formally start our first technical session. I think napanood na natin yung ating house rules kanina. So ayan, to formally start our first technical session about human-centered design thinking framework, let us have Engineer Christian S. Fajardo, the current IECEP Bulacan Governor, to introduce our first well-regarded resource speaker.
Thank you, Ms. Jackie, and good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce to you our first technical speaker for tonight. Mr. Walter Lee is the evangelist and head of Public Safety Consulting, Public Safety Center of Excellence, NEC Asia Pacific. He leads team in consulting engagement with strategic clients and is the domain expert for human-centered design thinking, explainable AI, ethics and governance, national digital ID for smart nation, and next generation no-code enterprise, information management and solution at NEC Asia Pacific. Walter is a business mentor at the NUS Institute of Engineering Leadership, providing coaching and mentoring to postgraduate and undergraduate students in a multidisciplinary learning environment. He was the CEO of e-AGM Group of Companies and Senior Vice President and Head of the Technology Transfer Network at A-Star Singapore. Walter has an MBA from the Golden Gate University of San Francisco, USA, Bachelor of Engineering in Electrical and Electronics from the National University of Singapore, Graduate Diploma in Research from the University of South Africa, South Australia, Graduate Diploma in Marketing from the Marketing Institute of Singapore, and the inaugural AI Ethics and Governance Certification from the Singapore Computer Society and Nanyang Technological University of Singapore. Distinguished guests, colleagues in the profession, members, and fellow officers, help me welcome Mr. Walter Lee. Sir Walter Lee, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Christian, for the wonderful introduction. I am so glad to be here. I realize that there are more than 1,000 participants. Congratulations to you for a very successful event. So for the next 90 minutes or so, I will take about 60 over minutes to take us to the human-centered design thinking framework. I'm going to share screen very shortly. But in between, if you have any questions you wish to ask, feel free to do so, and I'll try to answer the questions as well. However, near the end, the last 15 to 20 minutes, I will certainly unshare the screen so that if you have any interesting questions that you may want to ask me, we can have a dialogue together. Okay, let me share screen right now and make sure that everything works just right. Okay, maybe I need to have the screen sharing capability as host, co-host. Thank you very much. Can I have the screen sharing capability? Sorry about that. Thank you very much. Yes, it works now. Thank you so much. Let me share the screen. And you should be able to see the screen now. And let me just activate the sound correctly. I've been doing a lot of online conference, so this is the procedures that we always have to go through. Okay, we are ready to start. Everybody okay? All right, thank you for the kind introduction. I shall dive right into it. So just to share with you that right here at NEC, I'm the evangelist. As an evangelist, I'm a technology evangelist, although every time I go to Philippines and show my name card as an evangelist, all my colleagues and partners in Philippines would always encourage me, shall we start praying right now? And I'm so happy that just now, during your opening, there is a time of prayer for this whole session, which I really appreciate. I'm also heading the public safety consulting, whereby we provide advisory and solution consulting to customers. And hence, design thinking is one of the mechanisms I use with a team to work with customer in co-creating solutions. A short introduction, 3 slides about NEC. We are about 115,000 employee company, almost 122 years old. Can you imagine that? So it have been around, right? So for over 122 years, we've been reinventing ourselves. And right now we are reinventing ourselves as well to become a solutions-oriented company. Our annual revenue is about $27 billion as of March 2021. And we are a global leader in biometric, artificial intelligence, and networks, among other areas. So I'm so happy that yesterday you all discussed the technical aspect about 5G. Today, as I talk about design thinking, I will also use 5G as an example of how we apply design thinking to ideate the future. So we are also a very engineering-oriented organization. I'm an engineer by background before I moved into marketing and business. So these are our research laboratories globally. We have about 10 laboratories globally in Japan, America, of course, Europe, Israel, China, India, and last but not least, right here in Singapore. So that is our commitment to technology and to engineering in particular. Just give you an example. Our technologies goes all the way to the space. Okay, we are involved in the Space Hayabusa 2 satellite solution. And we are also implementer of the world's longest submarine cable system. Think about that. But right in between, right, we are involved in 5G. So we recently won the Leading Lights Award in 2021 for the best 5G core product, as well as the best new open radio access network product. So as you can see, we cover the space, the terrestrial network, which is now 5G, and of course the underwater sea cable. So from space all the way to the ocean floor. So quite an exciting portfolio that we have. So for those of you who are very keen on very geeky company, NEC is one such very geeky company, and I'm a geek myself. So that's why I'm so glad to be part of this IEEE conference that you have. Now come to design thinking. Now I did some homework and to understand what design thinking is like in the Philippines, and I realized that it's no stranger. The Philippines is no stranger to design thinking. 2020, this article in your business mirror talking about finding solutions in design thinking. And then I'm so impressed that on the right-hand side, various government agencies in 2015, about 6 years ago, attended a design thinking workshop in Cebu Island. Oh, I love that place, right? So exciting times, and I'm glad that the whole of the Philippines, in both the public agencies as well as the business enterprise, embracing design thinking. And just as an introduction go, yes, Singapore is also embracing design thinking where I'm based. In fact, I'm supporting Asia Pacific based out of Singapore, and in Malaysia, they are also moving forward with design thinking. So let's just listen to this. Last week, I was at the Singapore University of Technology and Design conducting a lecture on design thinking for complex networks such as 5G. And I reminded the postgraduate and undergraduate students, as well as the lecturers there, that Singapore as a country totally embrace design thinking. So in the next 3 minutes, I want you to hear from the Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong himself talking about why design thinking is instrumental to Singapore's success and journey from third world to the first. Can you imagine that? The Prime Minister talking about design thinking. So bear with me and listen to this very inspiring segment. Just a second.
Good design thinking is key in the effort to transform Singapore again. Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong challenged Singaporeans to reimagine and rebuild the country so that it remains outstanding. He said this at the Singapore University of Technology and Design's first ministerial forum that was held today. Vimita Mohandas with this report.
Singapore's journey from third world to first is largely due to good design thinking. Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong said that as a first world country, design thinking will be critical for Singapore to transform again and stay an outstanding city in the world. But with every inch of land developed or planned for, it may seem like there's no more empty space left for development. So he said that the answer is to free up new parcels of land and enable already developed parts of Singapore to be developed, modernized and improved. To rebuild Singapore, it would involve many major infrastructure and policy pieces, which includes the public transport system. Mr. Lee said public transport is a multi-level design problem. At one level, it is an engineering problem. But on another level, it's an economic problem with incentives needed for different players to help the whole system work well. It's also a socio-political problem because millions of Singaporeans use it every day.
And none of us like it when fares go up. So how do we give the public the assurance that the system is fair, that it is well run, and that when fares have to go up, they have to go up for a good reason, and the increases are necessary and justified. So that's a political problem. You can do the sums, you can make the audits, you can work, you can consult the managers, but finally you've got to talk to Singaporeans, the users, the population, and persuade people the system is working well, working for them, and we have to evaluate the trade-offs carefully and holistically, decide what will work best on the whole for Singapore.
Mr. Lee added that good design goes beyond the application of technology and economics and requires a deep understanding of human beings and their emotions.
Isn't that amazing? I think that is the best summary of what design thinking is, and coming from the Prime Minister of Singapore himself. So let's move on. I'm from NEC, as I've been introduced. So NEC is no stranger to design thinking as well. We had a very early head start since the 1990s when IDEO first started with design thinking, having gotten the same kind of concept from the Stanford Design School, as you know, right? Stanford Design School and IDEO are the early pioneers of design thinking. And since then, NEC has been working very closely with IDEO. There's a partnership ongoing. In fact, if you Google NEC and IDEO and design thinking, you'll see the recent interview that we had with Tim Brown, the executive chair at IDEO, talking about design thinking and how NEC is spearheading such innovation. So on the right-hand side, you see some of the PCs, computers, those are how PCs looked like then. Ever since then, for both hardware and software, we have utilized design thinking in everything that we do. And right now, as we go into complex solutions and networks, we are using design thinking as well. So later on, other than the methodology that will be taking us through, I will take us through, for example, 5G, right? And how you utilize design thinking to look at innovation with 5G. So really apply it and see how it actually works. Now, I want you to get your handphones ready, not because of taking each of our pictures, because throughout the session, I would have QR code on the slide for you to download documents that you can refer to subsequently and you can use it. Would that be okay? So get your handphones ready, because I want to allow this session to be interactive and you can get documents on as we go along. Now, so for design thinking, very often as engineers, we're thinking of product design, software design, hardware design, network design. What we are doing with our design thinking approach, we're going into what is called social value design. So we are moving from user experience to innovation to social experience. And we are embracing the United Nations Development Program objectives. So we are looking at design thinking to improve quality of life, sustainable earth, public safety and cities for sure, lifeline infrastructure, communication, industry ecosystem, and last but not least, work style, which I'll show you at the end of today's technical exchange. So user experience and social experience are very interesting. Right on the left-hand side, many of you probably are very familiar with design thinking as applied to user experience, from applications, apps that you use on a handphone, to products that you use. For example, what is shown here, even for those who are medically challenged and need wheelchairs, how do you make sure that you design it that is suitable for their experience? However, we are moving it beyond that. We are looking at it in terms of the social experience. Social experience. Let me just give you an example of what user experience and social experience. I saw in the introduction video earlier, which is a very wonderful video before your Philippine national anthem, about this time of COVID, right? So COVID, of course, all of us wearing the mask, are encountering what is called a very personal user experience. Be it wearing the mask, and for the medical professionals, wearing the full PPE, right, which is the entire suite, goggles, mask, as well as the medical uniform they're wearing. However, when we talk about the VTL, the vaccinated travel lane, you're moving from user experience to social experience, right? which country we go to, how do we interact with the people at the airport, and how do we interact with personnel in the country that we're visiting. If this was to be a physical event in Manila, I'll be applying for VTL right now, going to the Philippines, and I'll be going through this wonderful social experience, right? So we move from user experience to social experience. So in design thinking, we're going beyond the transactional approach of individual usage to the relational approach, whereby design thinking affects the community at large and the society at large. So we need to embrace co-creation in the whole design thinking process. The reason why my role is so interesting and exciting is that I get to work in partnerships with local government agencies throughout the world, including enterprises, companies, and we co-create solutions. Now that is the new world that we're living in. Means we're not looking at commercial off-the-shelf products that we put it to the end user. And the reason why we don't do that is because of this whole idea of design thinking. That is, we must work with the customer to do the actual co-creation of the solution, understanding the actual user requirements. So how do we do this? On the left-hand side here are all the various stakeholders that we work with. On the right-hand side are the various processes that you use. So left-hand side, stakeholders, right-hand side, processes. And I'll go into deep dive as we go into this area of discussion. So as I mentioned, there are 2 points of view, user experience and social experience, and we're putting that together now in terms of Society 5.0. So NEC combines social value design by using design thinking together with human-centered design. Now, many of you are engineers. This is an engineering forum. So I always share with my colleagues, especially my marketing colleagues, I say, design thinking is not an airy, fairy, beautiful design thing alone. It's a very engineering concept. There's an ISO standard for human-centered design, ISO 9241-210. Some of you would have referred to it. It's a guideline and a set of published guidelines that software solution developers and systems developers need to consider to ensure that their software solution, hardware, and complex system are human-centered and not product or technology-centered. Now, if you're interested, read it up. This is the latest version, 2019, right? 9241-210, 2019 version of the ISO standard. So we're not talking just about a marketing design kind of stuff. Design thinking is very engineering oriented. Now, what I've done is that I've curated all the best practices, as I mentioned earlier, of IDEO, Stanford Design School, which, as I mentioned, we are partnered to IDEO. And I have formatted it into a way that's even closer to our hearts, a human-centeredness, right? So empathize with our hearts, easy, right? Empathize with your hearts. Ideate and define with your heads. And how do you do prototyping and testing? With your hands. Now you see, hey, Walter, you draw a very complex system of gears, and the reason why I do that is because design thinking is actually a non-linear process. That means it's not A to B to C, which we all love. It's a very iterative process. And in fact, after I empathize, I may ideate. But after I ideate, I may go back to empathize because I realize there are many things I do not understand. And after I prototype, for example, I realize I learned many new things and I need to go back to the end user again to understand what is happening. However, knowing that all of us are engineers, I did a linear version of this, okay? So this is the linearized version, since many of you are engineers here and you prefer a more linear approach. But I want to emphasize, right, it is a non-linear process. So right at the top are the ideal 5 steps: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. So I've curated it further to make it even more human-centered. You empathize with your hearts, you define and ideate with your heads, we prototype and test with our hands. And how do we actually do it in a real-life work? You can do an immersion workshop to identify the passion and purpose of what you're doing. You do an ideation workshop whereby we go into the plans and priorities. Then in the implementation workshop, we develop the products and projects. And in each of these workshop modules, you go deeper. You go into an initiation module, which is customer focused, collaborators and stakeholders. You go into an ignite inspirational module, whereby you do team building and buy-in, consensus building. For ideation, you look at co-creation, ConOps and business canvas under the inspirational submodule. And innovation, now this is where it gets interesting. It's not just about the products, it's about policies, processes, and procedures. Why? Because we are moving from the user experience to the social experience. So therefore, it goes beyond the individual. And when we look at implementation, you look at prototype, proof of concept, pilot, of course, and the very exciting term called the minimum viable product, the MVP. And it's an iterative process. Therefore, you review and reinvent again, all over again and again. When I'm conducting the certification exercise for my colleagues across Asia Pacific, 200 over engineers, software developer, hardware project managers, sales engineers, and I share this with you. So excited. I'll share with you some of their learnings as well. I reiterate to them is that in design thinking, we start on the basis of IDK. What is IDK? Means I don't know. I don't have the answers. I like that, right? IDK, I don't know. And therefore, I don't make any assumptions. I go to the end users themselves to do my empathy work. And I'll show you how that is actually done. So this is our actual modules that I conduct in our internal certification. I'm showing this so that you see that this is true. The reason why I'm invited to this session to be with you all is because some of my colleagues who attended this suggested, hey, why don't we share this to your wonderful organization to see how we can learn together, right? And this is what I did over the last 6 months for 200 over executive. And on the right-hand side here, these are senior executive going through the actual prototyping exercise, the actual workshop. They actually went through the certification. This is a vice president from Japan, my colleague Saito-san, and he went through the entire online sessions and the on-site workshop. And these are my colleagues, and one of them, my boss, also went through an actual application of the workshop. Of course, she's not just attending the class, she's actually coaching the rest of the team of how to do it. And because of COVID, we even do some of this online. So as you can see, right, on-site, online, just like what you guys are doing right now online. And we can do it online as well. So this is an online version of our workshop, which I'll take you through using Miro, right? As you can see, this was just things that I'm conducting over the last couple of months. And the 3 groups that are going through the certification can go onto Miro and learn through the entire cycle of design thinking using the empathy map, the customer journey mapping, and the service blueprint. Don't worry, I will go deeper and show you how we actually learn together. Now, get your handphones ready. You got your handphones? Okay, because these are 2 very, very, very useful documents. Not from me. One is from the Global Center for Public Service Excellence by the United Nations Development Program. They had an innovation center that was based out of Singapore for 5 years now. They are based in Thailand. But when they were basing in Singapore, I was an NEC rep working with the UNDP Innovation Center. And they published a wonderful, wonderful guidebook, Design Thinking for Public Service Excellence, with processes and use case example. If you take your handphone right now, snap a shot of that QR code, the PDF document will download directly onto your handphone. So are you ready? Please do it. Go ahead and do it. On the right-hand side, as I mentioned about Design School of Stanford, right? This is a guidebook, an introduction to design thinking process guide. This is the updated version. So they've gone beyond just a 5-step. They fine-tune it even further by the Institute of Design of Stanford. PDF document, take your handphone, snap that QR code, immediately your handphone will download for you the PDF document. I give everybody another 10 seconds to do that. All set? Okay. So all set, we move on right now. So let's begin with empathy, right? Empathy map. So this is the first step in design thinking, to understand. Seek first to understand rather than to be understood, right? So right in the center is the user. So in the earlier example, when the Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong was talking about design thinking for the transportation network in Singapore, example of users would be passengers, right? Taking the train. But there are many types of passengers, right? Just a second, something went wrong with the screen. Yeah, there are many passengers, right? There could be students, there could be workers, there could be aged people using the transportation. And in each of this different group, I will have a different empathy map for them. So empathy map is something that I create after I have studied the market through research or interview process. So there is actually a primary research interview process with targeted customer. And we conduct them both within NEC and of course together with the customer. And you try to capture what the customer passengers say, for example, what the passenger do, what the passenger is thinking, what the passenger is feeling. Now, on the left-hand side is the easier one, like what the passenger say and does, right? The passenger say, oh, I want to get from A to B. That's why I travel on the train system in Singapore. So I write that down. Customer is traveling to work from A to B. Oh, I want to, customer say something else. Oh, I'm very concerned about the fares. With the inflation due to COVID, you know, the fares are going up by 2 to 3%. I'm not quite happy with that. So I put down here, customers say fare increase is a concern. Customer feel he's unhappy with fare increase. Are you with me now? So that's how the empathy map is filled up. Thus, oh, I observe, I do a market study, I go to the train station, I notice the customer using a fare card going through the MRT station. So what does the customer do? Use a fare card to go to the MRT station. Of course, I'm simplifying things a little bit. It goes much and much deeper in. Some people ask me, what about thinking? What do you mean thinking? Okay, thinking is very strange, right? There's certain questions I must ask the customer beyond what he say and what he does. I may say, when you go to the train station, what are the things that keep you, what are your concerns, for example? What are you thinking of? Oh, so they may say, oh, I'm very concerned about the massive crowd during the morning session or lunchtime. And then he's thinking he wants to avoid the crowd in the lunchtime or morning peak hours. Are you with me now? So this is very important, right? Says, does, thinks, and feel. And the left-hand side is easier to fill up. The right-hand side is more difficult. So this is called the empathy map, to empathize with the end user. And from this empathy map, of course, you create what is called the persona. The persona is actually a reformatting of this into something that looks a little bit like your CV and your bio data, right? It says it describes the person, what he does, what he says, what he thinks, what he feels. So in order to develop a persona, you need an empathy map. Not to worry, later on I will show you a real life example, not just in PowerPoint slide, but our 5G ideation and how we use persona to create the customer journey. Now I move to the customer journey. Now you see here, this is called empathy map, right? Empathy map, I have what the customer is saying, doing, thinking, and feeling. But the customer at the train station don't just stand there at the train station. He's actually moving, right? He's moving from his home to the train station. He boards the train, then he alights from the train. So he has a journey. So here I'm only listing 3 steps of the journey. During could be when he boards the train. Pre could be before he boarded the train. Post could be after he alighted from the train. But it could be more than 3 steps, as some of you may be putting up your hand and say, Walter, it's more than 3 steps. It could be paying for the fare, charging the fair cut. Absolutely, you're right. So these stages need not be 3. It can be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Complex, right? But for training purposes, you look at 3. And the idea is to say that we must not be silo-based when we look at design thinking, just looking at the passenger experience at the train station. We must look at his or her experience before he or she board the train and after he or she board the train. And you look at all the other aspects, doing, thinking, feeling, saying, others, as you got from the empathy map, but now you expand it over into a customer journey map. Now, I know this is a lot, but later on, I'm going to show you a video of empathy map to persona to a customer journey in the 5G experience. So watch out for that. What's important as designer now? Who is using this? What I'm showing you are templates for designer. I mean, for people like you and I, not the end user. The end users don't fill this up for you. We as designer fill this customer journey map. Yeah, some of my colleagues who was going through a certification asked me, hey, Walter, do I just pass this to the end user to fill? I said, no. End user just need to be end user. They just need to be themselves. It's our job as designer to capture all this into a customer journey map, also called experience map. Right at the bottom is very critical. It's called opportunities. This is whereby as designer, as you look at every aspect of the customer experience, we began to identify opportunities for improvement. Give an example of the train that I mentioned earlier. We realized as we observe at the train station, some customers' fare card couldn't work. And as we studied them, we realized it's not the fare card didn't work because they ran out of fares. Opportunities. How do I solve that issue of fare card running low or to zero without the customer knowing? And some of you very technical say, well, we don't use fare card anymore. We can use an app on the phone. Perfect question idea that you just had. Yeah, you can use an app on the phone. Why not? Exactly. And so on and so forth. So opportunities, and of course, I'm from NEC, number 1 in biometrics. I'll say, hey, forget about fare card. Use facial recognition to board people on the MRT train and charge to their credit card or deduct from their advance paid card. Why not? And I'll put down there as opportunity for improvement. This is how you do a customer journey map. As I mentioned, not to worry, later on, I'll show you a real life application and how this is being done. Now, this is called creative metrics, right? Now, as I mentioned to you, the example of the train station analogy, what do you mean by customer segment? As I mentioned, right, it could be students. Customer segment 2, workers going to work. Customer segment 3, the retirees, the aged. Customer segment 4, anybody else, right? And some of you may say, wow, Walter, we are a very animal-friendly company. Do I look at pets as well as part of the? Why not? Yeah, where do I put the pets, right? Where do I put the dog? Or do I ban pets altogether? And depending on the country you go to, some countries are pet friendly. Most countries will say no pets allowed on the train. So you look, what is on this left-hand side? This is actually the solution categories that you may have. And you list them down. I mentioned to you about the app. So it could be a phone app. I mentioned to you about biometrics, facial recognition. Category 2 could be biometrics, and I list them down. Then I can use a concept of high, medium, low to determine each of these category or solution or feature as applied to each customer segment. Are you with me now? So not to worry again, we will demonstrate this later on. Another very important tool in design thinking is what I call the prioritization matrix. Now, as engineers, you know, right, hey, Walter, this looks nice and dandy, right? But Walter, there are so many features that I've got to do. And I may not be able to do it all because some customers want it, some customers don't want it. This is called the Eisenhower decision metric or the prioritization matrix. And I have 4 quadrants in 2 pillars: urgent, non-urgent. Important, not important. So for what is important and urgent, do it now. Sounds familiar? For what is important but not so urgent, make some decision. Make decision means what? You prioritize 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're all important, but I still have to prioritize. Not important, but urgent, you delegate. Now, delegate, meaning that you cannot be the one doing it. You need to delegate to somebody to do it. Not important and not urgent. Forget it. Take it off your list. Delete. So do it now. Delegate. Decide means prioritize. Delete. There you go. So there's a prioritization decision matrix. So we have moved right from empathy, which is customer journey mapping, and the empathy map, right, to ideation, creative metrics. Now we go into ideation and implementation with what is called service blueprint. Service blueprint is whereby I translate now the customer journey experience I have into actual design of services. Very complex, right? So 3 color code I show you here. Right at the top is a green code, whereby this is where the customer experience the system. The blue zone is where the staff interact with the customer. And the gray zone is whereby the customer do not see, but these are things that I must do to support the frontline staff supporting the customer. Let's come back to the train station example. So these are all the passengers going to the train, right? Hopping onto the and getting their fare card deducted and so forth. So the line of interaction is them going through the kiosk, for example, and the gantry before they go to the train. The frontline staff will be all the security staff, the train station staff, guiding the passenger along in case there's too much crowd, in case they run into a fare issue, they have a challenge using their card. So these are people interacting with the customer. Does it make sense now? Then here are all the server network, the call center people supporting the frontline staff. They can't solve the problem, so they call help desk, everything. So your help desk and all that will be your backstage. So in real life, right, in any system that we do, there is a customer interaction, there is a line of visibility, and then line of internal interaction. This is extremely powerful. Now, what I didn't show you, which some of my colleagues raised their hand and say, hey, Walter, shouldn't there be vertical bars at different stages of the customer experience? I said, you got it. You win a prize. And the answer is yes. So what I've shown you is actually a simplified version of service blueprint. If there are 5 stages in the customer experience, there'll be 5 pillars. Now you notice that it's going to get very complex, right? So you may not use a PowerPoint slide to do that. You may use a spreadsheet to describe a service blueprint. Now, all the team members who've gone through the certification process that I conducted actually did all this, and both on-site or using Miro, and they created. And I couldn't show you the solution because they were working on real projects. So all their output was something that they need to do for customers. That's why earlier as I was preparing for this session, I got to, I unfortunately cannot show you the actual examples of what they did for customers, because those are all real projects and not just make-believe. Another very important tool, some of you may already use this, it's called $100 vote for prioritization. So if you have a lot of features, for example, accuracy, speed, multi-device support, multi-OI support, these are just an example. A $100 vote is to say, how much would I spend the $100 on? Now this is very important, because the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ranking, right, it's not the way we make decisions. Are you with me? In real life, right, when we work at a project, we have resources and we have to allocate our resources. We have time and we allocate our time, right? It is never a case whereby you just say, I do 1 first, then do 2, do 3, do 4, and do 5, right? We have to allocate our budget accordingly. Does it make sense? So this is one way to use to help you make decision in prioritization. How do we do this? So if you have a cross-functional team of 10 designers working together, or your business user and your operation tech and IT tech coming together, each of you will be given a set of features. Each of you will be given an imaginary $100 and doing the budgeting. And then from there, you can then understand how to prioritize your features and functionalities. Some of you who are in software may say, hey, Walter, what about software development lifecycle approach? How does that match in the design thinking? The answer, good news, is totally related. Okay, software development lifecycle and design thinking fits in perfectly. So on the right hand side is a discussion on that published in 2017. So if you look at the SDLC cycle, from requirements gathering to planning to software design, software development, testing, and deployment, you can deploy your design thinking approach throughout that life cycle. Another question that some of you may be asking me is, what about Agile, Lean Startup, which many of you heard? Again, they are all very related. This is from Gartner, which I think is quite useful, quite interesting, quite a useful chart that they share openly. Design thinking is actually the entire process. But when you look at Lean Startup, you're looking beyond the ideation stage already. When you're looking at prototyping and implementation, same as Agile. So this is how the three processes come in together. Are you with me? Now, they are totally integrated, meaning that it's not like you finish your design thinking first and you do a Lean Startup and Agile. It doesn't work like that. In fact, the three processes run in parallel. It's just that each of the process will kick in harder at different stages of your implementation and ideation. Okay, I promise you right now, we are exactly 50 minutes. We still have about 25 minutes to go. I will take the next 20 minutes to go through the illustration, just an illustration. As I mentioned, we do everything using design thinking, right? So last week, as I mentioned to you, I was doing a lecture with the SUTD, the Singapore University of Technology and Design, about how you use design thinking, for example, your 5G ideation. So now I'm going to show you an example of that. So in this clip right now, you're going to see two persona. That means two end user experience and how their customer journey is like, or maybe like, in the current and future or the near future. And therefore, watch this and see the empathy stage, the personas, the customer journey experience, and then the solution ideas that emerge. Okay, watch it. Just a second. Just give me a second. Go ahead.
"5G is now." We're in a world where massive data flows in real time between the physical and the virtual, and fast, intelligent connectivity enabled by 5G will create significant economic and social value. The way we work, live, and play will change dramatically. Driving this change is the value chain innovation of industries that will realize a continuous personalized experience for people. In other words, a new value journey. This is the future that we envision with NEC Smart Connectivity. Let's take a look at how this future may look like. Here we see Nick on his way home from work. As 5G networks connect to other forms of connectivity solutions, cars will become just another connected device, and its ownership will shift to shared mobility.
Hello, Nick.
Hi.
Will you be going to the stadium today as planned?
Yeah, I will.
We will arrive in 34 minutes. You'll have time to settle down in your seat before the games begin.
By continuously sensing real-time traffic, a stable, optimized traffic management can be achieved. One day, we may even see roads without traffic lights. Will pedestrians be safe? Yes, they will. Because on these roads, people are the top priority. And 5G will also change how we shop.
I want some new tennis shoes for Ella and myself.
Okay, how about some high-performance clay soles to match next week's court?
Sounds great. And I want the color to be Ella's favorite.
Shall I have them delivered when you get home?
Thanks. Could you place the order?
Certainly.
In the field of manufacturing and logistics, dynamic changes to the delivery processes will make possible a flexible production of a larger variety of products in smaller quantities. Production lines will make rapid adjustments, and goods seamlessly delivered to the customer when and where it is needed. Meanwhile, Ella is at home. IoT sensors can track your condition, so depending on your vitals and preferences, meals can be prepared using ideal ingredients.
I'd like to have dinner at the stadium.
Today, I recommend a dinner with fish and seasonal vegetables.
Okay, that sounds wonderful.
It will contain optimal vitamins and minerals to match your condition.
Food traceability from production to delivery ensures food safety and quality.
And do you agree to opt in and share your digital ID with the new catering service to place the order?
Yes, I agree.
And we can choose to share personal information so that personalized services can be enjoyed.
Your chef for today will be Chris.
Okay, Chris. Looking forward to some amazing food.
Ella, you need to start work in 2 minutes.
Okay, I'll be ready.
Work as we know it will also change. Take construction. Regardless of gender and age, skilled workers can operate construction machinery remotely from home. People can focus on where human sensitivity and creativity are needed.
I have shaped the slope, so it's ready for the next procedure.
Procedure initiated.
And autonomous machines will enable remote 24-hour construction.
Your bus to the tennis stadium will be coming in 4 minutes.
Okay, thanks.
As autonomous buses become more common, it will be the people's mobility of choice. Stadiums with 5G connectivity will elevate spectator sports experience. And by efficiently linking authenticated data over the network, delivery of goods directly to the customer when and where it is needed can be achieved. And when watching sports, AR adds to the experience with 5G and high-performance edge computing. Imagine being able to take a close look from multiple angles in real time. After an exciting game, you don't want to be caught in a traffic jam, do you? Don't worry. Public transport will be dispatched flexibly to adapt to people's schedule, so Nick and Ella are able to head home hassle-free. While in urban cities, public transport will be integrated into an efficient logistics network, carrying goods or people. The sharing economy will enable optimal delivery suited to the time and destination.
Nice shoes. Thank you, Nick. It will make me even better.
One day, I'll get to win over you.
Really?
5G is the key connecting the physical and the virtual, allowing unlimited data to circulate through ultra-fast uplink and downlink. NEC technologies integrated with 5G can enable highly secure, innovative services beyond what we've just seen. NEC Smart Connectivity.
Orchestrating a brighter world, NEC.
So there you have it, right? Even though we are a technology company, right? I'm a geek, and all my colleagues and senior management are geeks. However, when it comes to ideating the future, we use a design thinking approach. So this video that you just seen, right, articulated everything, right, in the design thinking journey. Two personas, their journey, what they think, what they feel, what they say, what they do throughout the day. And not just for a user, Nick, or a user, Ella, that is called the user experience. But for two of them, because they know each other, and that's called the social experience. So what I just described to you, right, is the process for us to ideate from empathy of real people to innovate ideas with new technology. And the question that you may have is that, do you actually do it into projects, right? And we did, right? So whatever you see there is then gone into POC pilots and minimum viable products. The augmented reality on the left-hand side that we did, the control of ground vehicles or machinery that we show you in the video. And last but not least, we are a technology company, right? The question is, okay, it's very nice to have the vision. How do you actually do it? Yes, we are the leader in Open RAN, which allow us to create very innovative solutions at the application layer. And therefore, this going deeper, right? This is how we convert the ideation journey into minimum viable products and projects, right? So you can see construction, you can see video distribution, smart factory, and supply chain management. Work, detailed minimum viable product pilots and projects that we do. So were they real projects? Yes. This is an example of a real project that we do with NTT Docomo and a security company called ARSOK. And we use 5G to look at enhancing safety and security. And how do you do it, right? Yes, that's how we design, right? You actually do a POC, and this is the actual framework of utilizing 5G in both a standalone as well as a local environment for high safety and security, all the way to security member wearing smart glasses, as you can see here. And also how do you do the control from a smart command center. So before we do this, right, it's very important that we don't focus on the technology. We are focusing on the entire customer journey mapping. And there give you your service delivery map, and at each part of the journey, you look at different solutions that come from it. So we go deeper, and just to let you know, from the minimum viable product now it has become projects that we're doing because it worked, and we continue to improve on it, and it becomes real life projects. Medical as well, medical use case for 5G, similar approach. Look at what are the end user experience problem statements, and then implement the solutioning concept accordingly. Now you may be saying, Walter, oh wonderful, so you created 5G solutions with your two persona. Yes and no. There are multiple persona. Supposing the persona change, this is about a manufacturing plant manager. There is a lot of manufacturing facility in Philippines, for example, other than all the wonderful call centers that you have. Right? Manufacturing is a very big thing in Japan and various parts of Asia. So how is this going to affect the life of workers in the manufacturing plant? You got to look at it from a different persona right now. So see how the solutions discussion changes when now I develop solution and ideas on a third persona, which is a manufacturing plant manager, and how do I look at it from his customer journey map, and therefore the service innovation that can come with 5G. Watch this.
The accelerating digitalization, declining labor force, and diversifying market needs. The manufacturing industry is undergoing tremendous transformation. What is the vision of manufacturing that we should aspire towards in the future? Manufacturer N is making a move toward improving conditions in their factory with the support of NEC. What kind of smart factory has manufacturer N realized 10 years from now? Why don't we interview the factory manager and find out? Chief, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Please tell us about the smart factory that manufacturer N realized in 2030.
Of course. The factory we built is capable of handling mass customization, We've completely eliminated overtime and stress-inducing operations that were serious issues 10 years ago.
In what ways has the factory changed?
The factory changed in two major ways. First of all, the concept of the production line has changed completely. We can now manufacture a wide variety of different products without changing the production line, layout, or worker allocation. This has helped reduce overtime significantly. Take a look at this production line. Each of the AGVs autonomously judge the parts and equipment that are required for production, which they then pick up and deliver to an open workstation. At the workstation where the equipment and parts are delivered, autonomous robots swiftly begin to build the products. Secondly, work style has also changed. Remote operation enables real-time remote control of operations from a comfortable location. For instance, workers no longer need to visit hazardous locations, but can now check on operational status in real time from the office. Stressful and strenuous operations can also be conducted from a safe and comfortable environment.
It seems you have successfully created a comfortable environment for the workers.
This monitor room is also connected to the factory overseas, allowing us to check operational status in real time.
Thank you, Chief. So there you have it. 10 years from now, the manufacturing industry has undergone a dramatic transformation. Besides 5G, NEC will use AI, robots, IT, and OT to fully support customers in realizing smart factories.
Orchestrating a brighter world, NEC.
So let me repeat again. There you have it, right? You look at the entire articulation, and as you've gone through that design thinking framework I just mentioned, you then realize, oh wow, Walter, once you go to the design thinking methodology, it becomes your script, your content script for a video ideation such as this. Absolutely. So these videos are not produced by wonderful external script writers who imagine what the future will be like. That would be unreal. This is actually done through a very intentional design thinking approach so that whatever solution and ideas you generate are real. And not just real, as I mentioned about POC, pilots, and MVP, but real enough for you to actually scale up. Let me just show you how far we have gone ahead with 5G. So this is Germany, March 2021, right? NEC Laboratory is the appointed tech manager for the Horizon 2020 project using adaptive and self-learning mobile networks. So this is how we go from ideation to prototype to scaling up. Spain, we are testing an Open RAN wireless network with 800 5G stations across 4 markets by 2022, in 1 year's time. And Spain themselves are driving a pilot 5G Catalonia for the Spanish city of Barcelona. So scaling up, not just a wonderful concept that you use at the lab, but able to operate in a real society. So very important, right? Not just user experience, but social value design. Some more examples: United Kingdom, private 5G network. NEC participate in the UK government-led 5G Open RAN trial program with the neutral RAN testbed. So as I can see, as engineers, right, meaning it's ideating from an empathy stage with actual user persona. As engineers, then I'm translating those solutions into minimum viable products. Engineers, I need to architect it in order to scale it up so that I can implement it for cities. Not easy, fun, right? Not simple, but complex, complicated, but doable. As engineers, that's what we can do. Beyond that, we have also worked with partners such as Amazon, right? So not all things that I showed you here is something that you can design and do on our own, but we also have to work with third-party and large players such as Amazon. So yes, that's how you apply design thinking. So in our conversation, even with our partners, it's the same approach use a design thinking, so it's not an engineering talk alone, it is an ecosystem play that you work with. See the power now of using design thinking in innovating complex systems. With that, I want to show you something right to here now, right? You may be saying, Walter, oh, this is so nice, 5G is so exciting, it will take another 10 years, right? Exactly what I just showed you, it will take another 10 years. Right in the beginning of this pandemic and the beginning of this session, you saw the wonderful inspirational video of how the pandemic has affected all of us. Just like now, I would love to be doing this live in Manila or in Cebu, right? Rather than sitting out here in Singapore and doing it via webinar. I would prefer to be doing live, but we're all affected by the pandemic. Last year, when the pandemic occurred on 11 March, I was back in the NEC office. Reason? Because NEC is classified as a critical service provider in Singapore. We were back in office, wearing masks and all that, of course. Innovating new solutions such as, can you do facial recognition with the mask on? We actually did that. And as we did that prototype, it was then subsequently tested in Hawaii Airport and then became a project for deployment in Hawaii Airport. So we were innovating solution, transforming in the world, in the disruption. So next mini document I'm going to show you is how do we do it? What are we doing right now in the midst of the pandemic with a design thinking approach, transforming ourselves to support ourselves and the society through this pandemic. Watch this.
As the world goes through increasingly extreme and rapid changes, so do the needs of NEC's customers and employees. In order to excel in this ever-evolving landscape, it is vital for NEC to maximize the potential of our employees while adapting to their needs and preferences. Designed to be frictionless, NEC solutions empower NEC employees within our premises, allowing them to work and operate smarter. This drives seamless integration between various touchpoints, such as endpoint devices, meeting spaces, and retail outlets. NEC is creating an environment which allows ideas to flow freely, encounters to happen naturally, and synergies to develop organically. These initiatives drive the fusion of physical and digital environments, allowing for countless work combinations in real or remote settings. It is also NEC's responsibility to ensure that employees feel safe and secure at all times. By having a transparent view of key touchpoints across the building, employees are able to optimize their physical movements through the day. These solutions will also extend to NEC's guests, allowing them to enjoy a higher level of personalization and safety. NEC is creating a workplace which adapts to the needs of its 100,000 group employees. A workplace which allows for a personalized experience across physical and digital realms will ensure that employees work safer and smarter. NEC iDelight utilizes NEC's cutting-edge biometric and digital identity solutions to deliver a safe, seamless, and secure experience for employees and customers alike.
Orchestrating a brighter world, NEC.
You will see this repeated, right? Orchestrating a brighter world, because that's indeed what we are doing in everything that I just mentioned earlier. So the design thinking that I mentioned earlier is not just something that is good to do, it's something that we do for a living. And those last video I showed you is what I'm doing in the midst of the pandemic when it started in March 2020. And all of us were busy working on those new solutions that you see that we have deployed in the midst of the pandemic. Now, as I promised you, take out your handphone. Now, some of you will be saying, can I get tools to do it other than working NEC? Of course you can. On the left-hand side is an open source interaction design foundation whereby they are so wonderful. They have toolkits available that you can download. It's an open source so-called content provider. So capture the QR code on the left-hand side of the screen. You see that? And you can go to the website. For those of you who like to use your smartphone, on the right-hand side, if you're using Android, unfortunately there isn't an Apple iOS version. If you're using Android phone, click the QR code, immediately you'll download the app to give you all the tools, some of the tools, most of the tools for design thinking. And some of the very important tools that I just shared with you are also available in both of these resources. So there you have it. I have 5 minutes left. I'm going to answer some of the questions that on Q&A. I'm sorry if I cannot answer all the questions because of the time, but I'll answer some of them. One of them, very interesting. In the customer category of transportation, the question asked, people who are attempting suicide may also be included. The subway station should be designed to prevent suicide. Absolutely, totally agree. In fact, the subway station in Singapore went through a revamp because there were people either accidentally falling onto the tracks or maybe committing suicide, and the stations are redesigned with safety features. So now in all the train stations in Singapore, the safety features have been incorporated. So to answer your question, absolutely, that is how we should make sure that design thinking look at the different segment of customer need. Another very good question. Data privacy is already an issue today. What more if we provide more data online? It will be a feast for hackers and strikers. What are the future security protocols that will be imposed? Totally agree. In fact, that's why me and several of my colleagues, I had to set the example. So I've just completed my certification on AI ethics and governance. So we must ensure, as we look at user need, one of the fundamental user need is data security and data privacy. So there are concepts such as federated AI learning. Yes, Google that up, read it up. Federated AI learning means that we protect certain layers of the data so that when the AI deep learning engine mine the data, you do not go to data that is too sensitive or too private that you don't want the user's privacy to be impacted. Blockchain is another example to safeguard data security. So yes, data privacy and data security are non-negotiables. We must make sure that even as we look at AI, we must look at the AI ethics and governance. So I can only take those few questions because my time is up. Let me unshare the screen and hand you back the time to the host. Thank you very much for your time. I wish you every success, lots of fun in the days ahead in this conference and your work as wonderful engineers like myself in engineering new innovative solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Walter Lee, for that very timely and highly relevant discussion on human-centered design thinking framework. So may I request Mr. Lee to please stay on the spotlight as we present to you a plaque of appreciation. Let us have Engineer Olga Joy L. Garasta, the current IECEP Ilagan Bay Governor, for the awarding of the plaque of appreciation.
Thank you for the wonderful talk on human-centered design. We understand how it provides a mindset and tools in ensuring products and or services improves the lives of end users, and how it offers a process and mindset that creates self-sustaining solutions to some of the world's greatest challenges. And with that, the Institute of Electronics Engineers of the Philippines and Corporations award this plaque of appreciation to Mr. Walter Lee in grateful recognition of his expertise, professional competence, and invaluable services rendered as a resource speakers during the 71st Annual General Membership Meeting and Convention with the theme Embracing Digital Transformation in the Time of New Normal. Given this 28th of November 2021, signed Dr. Loreliza D. Bulayog, PECE, AGM 2021 Convention Chairman, Secretary General, and Dr. Michelle D. Lawas, PECE, President. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I had done a screen capture. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Once again, on behalf of IECEP Incorporated, we would like to extend our gratitude to Mr. Walter Lee and, of course, to Governor Olga for awarding that plaque of appreciation. Once again, thank you so much, Mr. Walter Lee. I hope we get to invite you once again in the near future.
And in the near future, over at Manila or Cebu in the Philippines. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. See you po soon, not just virtually, but in person as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, so now that concludes the first technical session that we have today. Moving right along, it is now time to have our second technical session. And to introduce our second resource speaker for the day, let us have Engineer Eric T. Abad, the current IECEP North Mindanao Governor.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm here, ma'am.
Yes,
okay,
sir. Yes.
Okay, our guest speaker for tonight is a well-versed individual in the fields of telecommunications, security systems, radio communications, and project management. He graduated his BS ECE at the University of Santo Tomas and his master's degree in project management at Northumbria University, Newcastle, United Kingdom. He is the project manager of NCS Private Limited. He is also an active IECEP Singapore officer serving as president. He is also a member of the Institute of Engineering and Technology in United Kingdom. He is also a chartered engineer of the United Kingdom, a certified project manager professional. Ladies and gentlemen, our speaker for tonight will talk about the topic, the project management dilemma, Waterfall versus Agile. Help me welcome Engineer Jose Carlos Tupaz VI. Sir.
Hi, thank you very much, Mr. Eric Abad, for that wonderful and welcoming introduction for yours truly. And good evening once again, everyone. I hope we've started, I think that we started today 5 p.m. We've had a couple of talks, and I hope and I believe my audio is okay. Okay. So today I'll be discussing something I would say still very interesting that we have for the past few years, especially in our field. Some think it's very controversial, some think it's sensational, but today we'll try to simplify that. And tonight I will be requesting everyone's participation as I ask a simple question, one simple question at the end, and we will see from there, all right, how we grasp the concept of what we're going to discuss today. So let me share my screen. All right, so all right, could I have a signal if someone or everyone can see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can see your screen, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, that's enough. That's good enough for me. All right. So tonight, please bear with me. We'll be discussing what we call waterfall versus agile. All right. Perhaps you've heard of the agile methodology or agile framework from technical sources or magazines or websites. And I believe many of us here tonight are actually practitioners of Agile. Many of them are certified, in this area. So without further ado, I'll be going through, by the way, I am actually currently the systems engineer manager for Thales, working for Metro Manila Subway project. Yep. Before was my work with the NCSA project manager. Yep. All right. So tonight, we've actually I've prepared something that is we'll have that that smooth flow, to slowly warm you up, not to bombard you with confusing or digressing information. So what we have tonight, I will be starting off with the project management. So important concepts I'll be reviewing with you, so that we could have more appreciation of what waterfall and what agile are, in terms of framework and project management practices. All right. So we'll start off with project management, its history. I'll have some case studies for everyone, and then we will see what the applications of waterfall and agile are, and then we will go through with what waterfall is. Maybe you're thinking it's somewhere in Pagsanghan. But tonight we will not be talking about that body of water, as we call it in school previously. All right. And then we will run through the agile framework. And then definitely we will conclude with our the encompassing analysis of what we've discussed for the entire seminar. Okay. And then definitely we'll have a chance for everyone, or some of you, to ask your questions as we conclude. All right. So starting off with introduction to project management. Okay. I would like to start off and warm you up with the very definition of what a project is. All right. Perhaps many of you have have done many of these things, and we could have had different impressions of what it really means. So here we will actually be going through the detailed definition of what a project is. All right. So here, sourcing from the project management body of knowledge. By the way, this is actually the main resource for the Project Management Institute for project management professional practitioners. Here it says, a project is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique project, service, or result. This is a very clear and crisp definition of what a project is. It's short, but it's crisp. All right. So let's try to understand and dissect this definition. All right. So let's start off with this. A project is temporary. All right. It's not an ongoing endeavor. It has a start and a finish. All right. So if you're doing something and it doesn't have a start date or an end date, that's not a project. All right. And then we have here endeavor undertaken, which means a project uses materials, equipment, people, processes, software, all these resources to actually build something to put them together, to integrate. Actually, in project management, the word integrate or integration is a very important concept, right? So a project needs to have resources, right? No matter how small, even if you're doing a small project by yourself, you try building, you have a cooking project at home, you will need resources, you'll need materials, you'll need ingredients, you'll need a piece of paper to write down the things that you have to prepare. So all these things are actually part of your resources. And then we do have here create, which means a project aims to produce a service or a product. It needs to have something that is tangible. All right. Of all the things here, of all the words here, my favorite part is the word unique, because no two projects are exactly alike. I believe many of you have heard of, perhaps experienced something wherein you're doing repetitive projects. Let's say even in construction, right? They will say, okay, this building is a residential building, which we've done before. We're just gonna do it again. No? And then perhaps the managers will, the business people will have this mindset that, okay, what we can do to speed up engineering, we just copy and paste. This is where mistakes do happen because no two projects are exactly alike. And I can debate with anyone that will, contend this concept for a project. All right. And lastly, okay, a project needs to have a result that is measurable, because you need a way to actually measure if your project is successful or not, whether it it achieves its aims or objectives. Okay, so let's further bring this into practice, and let's see from here. Okay, so a project has start and finish dates. Okay, so I believe many of us here have worked with contracts. All right. And even some of us here have employment contracts, which are time-based or time limited. Let's say 2 years or 5 years contract. So it will have a date and start dates. And one of the scariest part of the project is the word deadline. Because the bigger the project is, the larger the liquidated damage is. So when you talk about liquidated damages, some clients are so demanding that they require certain milestones to be met at a certain date. Otherwise, you will be penalized with monetary compensation. All right. So the second point here. A project uses materials and equipment. So, resources, like I mentioned a while ago, will always require spending. It will always require spending, no matter how small. You need to invest. That means every project is an investment by itself, because you need to spend, all right, to acquire these resources, to maintain these resources, to keep it running while the project is ongoing, all right? And then a project aims to produce a product or service. A project will always have deliverables, most of which are tangible deliverables, whether it's software, something that you can use, something that you can touch, you could see, you could measure, you could use, okay? No two projects are exactly alike, so we've actually emphasized that. To further elaborate on my example, even if you have two identical buildings being built exactly the same, right? You could always say, oh, yeah, but this second building that we're building is situated in a different location, which has different logistics or logistical challenges, because it's higher on the mountain. So you need, you need different kind of equipment to lift the materials up. So it really is, debatable. I would say you cannot argue that a project cannot be considered as something that you could repeat exactly the way it is. And lastly, expounding the definition of SMART: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based. So the aims of projects are normally given in numbers. And many of us here have worked on projects which have specifications, right? Specifications or project requirements, okay? Measurable. We need to always find a way to measure the things that we do. In PMI, we always have a joke. Whenever you start a project, make sure you're able to measure everything that you do. Your progress, your submissions, your audits, If you cannot measure, don't do it. Don't do the project, because you'll be surely to fail if you don't know how to measure what you're doing. Okay, and of course, your project must be achievable, realistic. I'll give you one example. If, for example, I want to start a project to maybe bring people to Mars next month. So we'll question, is it really achievable and realistic? So might as well forget about it. All right, and what I mentioned in the previous slide, a project is time-based, so it has a start and finish dates. Okay. So here I would just like to touch on further project management concepts. Okay. Perhaps you've heard some of these terms already. So we have a project, a program, and portfolio. But what are the differences? All right. Some may think that it's just the same. Others think that a big project is a project, but in fact, it is a program. A project by itself is actually what we've defined, all right? But a program is actually a group of projects that are interrelated, all right? So these projects are actually having a relationship with each other. So when you consider projects that have relationships with each other, it's a program. All right. So one good example is the program that I've managed in Malaysia. It's a $100 million project, which consisted of 22 subcontractors, wherein my company is actually supposed to supply an integrated telecommunication system for the entire plant. That makes me, someone who actually deals with a lot of stakeholders, a lot of people, a lot of different contracts, because each and every package contractor has a different set of contracts. Each of these are considered a project by itself. So that is actually considered a program. All right. Now, a portfolio is a higher level, which encompasses both program and project. So if you can see a mixture of programs and projects being managed, all right, that is called portfolio management. Most of these are actually C-level positions in a company, right? So for example, for Rolls-Royce, it has its portfolio. It's unrelated. For example, it builds cars, right, in its portfolio. And on the one end, it also builds jet engines. So there's no relationship, but it's actually managed as one in one portfolio. So you have now a view of the business, where a business could have its own portfolio, and inside our programs and projects. Okay. So now I would like to take one step further by elaborating what I mean when I say that a project needs to have a start, a beginning, and an end. Okay. On your left hand here is what you normally call an operations life cycle. Right. So what normally happens is that cash comes in for investment, and then there's raw materials that you use. Then you build it through production. You have finished goods. You sell the goods, you acquire income, you repay your contractors or your suppliers, you have income. That income you again put as an output, all right, an investment. You get raw material. So you can see it's a cycle. It's like San Miguel, when they're making beer, it's a continuous cycle. That by itself is not a project because it's operations, okay? But given that definition, it doesn't mean that inside an operations cycle, you cannot have projects. You can have projects by itself. For example, in my example, the San Miguel beer factory, right? You could have projects inside that, for example, for upgrading. When you want to upgrade certain machinery, to upgrade that by itself, you could actually treat it as a project, okay? On the right-hand side, you will see the difference because it's straight line, okay? So this actually is a summarized definition of the stages, right? In project management, we normally use the word stages, not phases. Phase has a different definition in project management. So these are stages. You have conception, it flows down to definition, planning, and then you execute, you perform, and then you close the project. You close it, okay? Once it's closed, it's done, it's adjourned, all right? Okay, so you can see the difference. You have a circle here, it's a cycle, it's a continuous cycle on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, it's basically a straight line. Okay, so just like to give you a certain appreciation of our profession, because we do have quite wide myriad, I would say, of industries wherein we could actually contribute as a profession, in creating value, to mankind, I would say. So ECE projects can include product development. The iPhone, right, is a developed product, right? So that was a project. Before it became a product within the operations life cycle, it had to be a project because you need to build a prototype and you have to test it, right, before it goes down to market. Okay, so aeronautics and avionics, of course, electronics, we are there. You could see lots of electronic systems in the space program for NASA, air traffic management systems in avionics, and communication systems infrastructure, all right? Defense, safety, and security systems. The world right now, is a cyber world, and this is something that we cannot really ignore. It's something that's very vital to our existence right now. Just imagine, I don't know whether you've in my time there was a movie called The Net, so this movie actually starred a lady which works in a company, and her life was actually destroyed by simple manipulation of her information in cyberspace. They took all her money from the bank. It's just numbers in the bank, right? They put a warrant of arrest for her, so these are all information. Okay, and we also do have AI and machine learning projects, like in Google. We are actually electronics engineers are actually large contributors in these projects. Okay, so these are just some of the famous successful projects. Okay, so in 1969, the three astronauts, Edwin Aldrin, Michael Collins, and Neil Armstrong. These three astronauts successfully landed on the moon, okay, with the help of electronics. 1969, we already have that technology to actually make it successful. Before that, it was really just a dream, a fiction. And then on the right-hand side, on top, we do have the Shanghai Maglev. I took this train 13 years ago. It was really fast. It was really fast when I was in Shanghai. The train actually travels nearly 400 kilometers per hour, and there's no vibration whatsoever. This technology is really dependent on electronics, power electronics mainly, in terms of sensors. In industrial electronics, this is actually one of our case studies. In 1978, GPS was born, right? So right now, a few decades later, we are actually benefiting, from this technology. Just imagine. But take note, if you think GPS is free, it is not really. It's half of it is actually used for benefit of mankind. But do you know that GPS? This is a little trivia for you. There's actually an encrypted portion in the GPS data that only US military can decrypt. And it's actually used for guidance systems. So don't think that this is something free, all right? If you think that way. And then lastly, we do have TAT-8, the very first transatlantic fiber optic cable installed in 1988. All right, as you can see from the illustration here, it connects US to Europe, right? And it paved the way for high capacity, high channel communications across the globe, right? Now, if we are talking about successful projects, let's now look at famous failed electronics projects. So if you think, our profession is all about glory, we also do make costly mistakes. And some of these are actually cost lives, human lives. You can see from the top is Therac 25 in 1982. This is actually a machine that was built for the purposes of using a specialized software for radiotherapy for cancer patients. So the Therac 25 uses a software to actually calculate and pinpoint the exact locations of where and how much dose of radiation the human body, or certain parts of the human body should actually have in order for the cancer cells to be, eliminated. Unfortunately, during this time, the software engineers or the electronics engineers who were actually handling this did not use, I would say, proper change management, or those practitioners of software, right? We use GitHub, in tracking changes. So what they did when Therac 25, the second generation, came out in the market, they used old software. So they did not do a proper regression test. So for some of you who are not familiar with the regression testing, that means it's actually using software. You test it on an existing system and check whether there's any impact on the operation whatsoever. So what happened was it actually provided, or it emanated high level or high doses of radiation to patients which the machine should have not, and they killed. This machine killed a few people because of that. All right. Now on the right hand side is another interesting failed project. Now this is a funny project. Okay, I would say it's a very ridiculous failure. Okay, in 1998, after 5 years of preparation by NASA, so the Mars Climate Orbiter actually entered the Martian atmosphere. Everybody were, they're so excited. We are here already, and it's good. We achieved it. And then suddenly, when they were actually receiving altitude data, they noticed, why is my climate orbiter half the altitude where it should be? And then a few minutes later, the climate orbiter exploded. So definitely, after realizing, oh, we just blew up $400 million of project, so an investigation was done, and they found out that in the systems integration or the systems engineering of the thruster system and the control system, which are actually supplied by two different contractors, the interface are actually supposed to be exchanging data of force. Of course, if you want to know your altitude, right, you need to actually determine the pressure, because pressure is actually dependent on altitude. The thruster was actually receiving pounds of force in units, when in fact the thruster was actually expecting kilograms of force. So it's actually a funny thing when they discovered that, hey, just because of the unit, we actually blew this up. So for all the academics here, this is a good example for your students. You know, when you give them a 0 on an exam where they actually did not put the unit, make this as an example. So units are very important. Okay, units are very important. Okay, lastly, the Patriot missile failure. Okay, this was actually another blunder. Saudi Arabia. Okay, so the Patriot missile is a defense system that's supposed to protect, you know, soldiers from incoming missile attacks or shell attacks. The Patriot is actually, you know, an interceptor. It's in defense systems. It's actually called an interceptor because it's supposed to intercept an incoming threat, a missile. Okay. What happened was a Scud missile actually came from Iraq and then actually hit a bunker and killed soldiers. So what happened? Did this not? This system seemed to fail. Later on, they found out that the software had the blunder in the scanning times of the radar because it actually used a different type of variable that where it's supposed to be. If you remember in your C++ programming, right? In your programming, certain values of numbers or variables must be given a type, a class type, okay, of variable. For example, if you're using an integer, it has a limit. If you're using float, you get more precision. You get a double, you get longer digits. Here, they use the wrong type of variable, and it was actually divided by 12 to actually obtain the scanning time for the radar in the sky. But due to the wrong variable type used, actually it was scanning incorrectly and the error actually accumulated. And it actually killed people. Okay, so ECEs are important. Okay. All right, so moving on. I hope that that actually sparks your interest. You know, sparks your interest in projects, electronics engineering projects. Okay, so here in this slide, okay, let's talk about the definition of project management. Okay, so perhaps the failed projects that we have just seen, you know, the Therac 25, the Mars Climate Orbiter, or the Patriot missile could have been avoided, excuse me, if proper project management could have been done. Yeah, maybe it's more of engineering also, but if we had perhaps more stringent quality control checks, quality assurance checks, or testing or validation or verification procedures, maybe those things could have been avoided. So project management, as per PMI, is the use of specific knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to deliver something of value to people. So take note, ladies and gentlemen, that project management is not something, you know, some people may think that it's just common sense. You know, project management is just common sense. It requires specific knowledge and skills. All right, because later on, when I explain, you will see how big this responsibility really is. Right. So a bit of history here. So 1917, I know whether you're familiar with the Gantt chart. Later on, you will see, I'll show you an example of a Gantt chart wherein you will see tasks. And then these tasks are actually expounded in bars in a timeline. So you'll see what tasks are being done across the timeline. Okay, and it was actually invented by a soldier. As a matter of fact, it's a soldier, Henry Gantt. Okay, in 1917. In 1957, the critical path method was actually invented by DuPont. DuPont was actually the developer of many technologies that we take for granted now. Teflon, they were the ones who invented this. It was actually used in atomic bomb. Okay, so critical path is actually a method used in project management wherein you use the longest path you've actually generated by analyzing the longest possible duration that a task could take, and then putting them together. Any other tasks that run in parallel that are shorter than that will have what we call slack, right? So there you will know how much allowance on the other tasks you can have by actually tracking the critical path. Okay, so in 1969, PMI was born, and if you think Scrum is new, no, Scrum actually started in 1986. Right, Scrum actually originated from football. It's when you throw your team out to scrum, and then they're all doing all the things that they have to do to regain control of the game. Okay, and then 1989, the Prince method came to be. PMI was US, Prince is actually United Kingdom. All right, and then recently we do have what we call the total cost management framework methodology. All right, so total cost management brings further the importance of finance and money in the projects that we do. Okay, so that's a bit of history here. Now I would like to explain to you the rigid triangle, which is actually the dreaded triangle in project management, which many people think and demand that we need to be in control of. All right, so we call this a triple constraint. If you can see, we do have three parts here. All right, time, cost, and quality or scope. All right, what does this mean? What does this rigid triangle mean? Right, it means that all these three things are actually parts of what a project manager should be prioritizing on. All right, you're a project manager. You cannot be ignorant of costs in the project. Okay, if you're a project manager, you need to be aware of the schedule and the scope and quality of the product or service that you are managing. All right, now if you look at this, that's why the reason why this is a rigid triangle is, for example, something on the project causes your time scale to actually expand or the schedule to expand. Let's say your project gets delayed, right? Cost will rise. Bring about it, cost and your scope. And then you can apply this concept to all the other parts or all the other sides of this triangle. It's the same thing. So if your client sometimes tell you, okay, I need to increase my scope. Wait a minute, okay? Because it will entail increase in time and increase in cost. And we can argue about it, but this is change and you need to pay me, all right? So this is actually an important concept in project management, right? Okay, so now we come to this point, all right? So first we've discussed what a project is. Secondly, we've discussed what project management is. And now we are actually discussing what that person is, that project manager. Who is this project manager? There's this one joke, that we always have. There's this man who came to a pet shop. He came to a pet shop, and then he actually asked for this monkey he saw in front, and he asked the owner, how much for that monkey? Then he said, oh, that monkey is actually a developer monkey. He knows software. He's $500. Wow, very expensive for a monkey, right? Yeah. And then secondly, he said, okay, what about that monkey? Oh, that is our project manager monkey. Why do you say it's a project manager monkey? Because you see, he's a project manager. You see, he's wearing tie, wearing coat. Yeah, okay. How much is that? I say, that's $5,000. What? $5,000 for a project manager monkey. Why? Well, simply because he's a project manager. All right, so that is actually that's actually a lame joke that we use, you know, in profession. But I hope I don't offend anyone, just to break the ice at this point. All right. Okay. Now, this project manager, why is he important? You know, because he has a lot of things to accomplish, a lot of things to actually manage. He needs to manage his team, a team of people. He needs to manage that schedule. He needs to make sure that the tasks are happening on time, all right, in sequence, it's properly followed. And he needs to manage the budget, the costs, okay? There's a lot of reporting, documentation that he needs to feed all other stakeholders, the owner of the business, the client, third parties, other subcontractors. He's also monitoring progress, and he's also a fortune teller. You know why I say that a good project manager is a good fortune teller? Because a good project manager as a fortune teller has a crystal ball. Okay, a crystal ball called experience. Okay, so this crystal ball he uses to predict. Okay, the crystal ball of experience he uses to predict what could happen in the future. And at the start of the project, even before starting anything, he already prepares for that. So a good project manager washes his hands before going to the toilet, right? Okay. And then, so he manages the satisfaction of the customer. Okay. So I hope you understand when the project manager actually brings out the clients for dinner. You know, it's part of it. It's part of it. All right. So as you can see, it's really a very big responsibility for this project manager. Okay. So these are the key skills. Okay. Some of these are, I think So big picture thinking, selling the vision, communication is very important. And take note, when some of the team members or other departments are actually quarreling with each other, he's the one responsible to resolve it, to resolve that conflict. He needs to have superior analytical skills because things are somewhat beyond common sense, really. I'm telling you, when you're executing complex projects. Okay. Now we've come to this part. Okay, so what we have here is a waterfall project management. Okay, so waterfall. Now some of you may think, I've never heard of this. Maybe some of you have already thought of this, heard about it. Okay, so waterfall is actually a project management methodology. A methodology that emphasizes the use of linear progression from beginning to the end of a project. So as you can see here, there are certain. By the way, I've actually simplified this, right? So for the sake of presentation. Okay, so a project starts with feasibility, or sometimes projects call it front-end engineering design. Some call it conceptual phase, and then we come to design. This is where you actually execute it in a more detailed manner. You come up with drawings, calculations, functional design, and all this. And then once you have that design simulated, tested, vetted through, approved, then you start to implement. You build, you put things together, you assemble, all right? And then you, of course, test whether my implemented system is working or not. You have to test it. Even in construction, this happens, all right? For electronics engineers, in the factory, we do have automated testing, right? We have automated testing platforms. In software, we do have testing platforms. In systems integration, in hardware, we do have factory tests, right? Factory acceptance tests. Okay, when we come up with a customized and configured solution. All right, and lastly, we have to deliver and implement this for the client. Now, if you look at this diagram, you will see that it's actually a flow. All right, that's why it's called waterfall. Okay, so it's like a waterfall, literally, right? Now this is actually what each stage has. All right, so just a little bit on waterfall according to PMI. So one of the key important factors, and this is my tip for you, if for example you're being asked to perform a project, to do a project in the office, let's say, all right, and I would really admit that my superiors and my employers have admired this, is that you create a charter. Now, what is a charter? A charter is actually a document. It doesn't have to be a complex one. It's a chart. It's a document that actually describes what the project's objectives are. What are the estimated timelines? Who initiated that? Who is the project manager? And what needs to be delivered? Sometimes it also includes, and what I do, I always do this in the charter, are the authorities the project manager has. Now, why is this document important? This document is important is because this authorizes the project work that you do. So as I told you, right, good project managers wash their hands before going to the toilet. This one will ensure that anyone who questions you in the office, you can always show them proof that, hey, this project's authorized, man. All right. And this is my proof. This is signed. Okay. I'm the project manager. This is authorized by the CEO. So maybe if you're questioning why I'm asking you to do this, maybe you can ask the CEO. Then it actually helps you, right? But it's actually more than, it's more than protecting your rear. Actually, the charter initiates the project because it actually sets the direction of where it's heading to. Okay, so project charter is important. It needs to be approved and signed by the authorizing party or committee. Okay, and then you go into definition and planning. This is actually I would say, the most difficult part. Okay, another tip for you who want to practice project management. Definition and planning. If you do this properly, you will have a smooth execution. These steps 3, 4, and 5 will be very smooth if you do number 2, very well. Okay, this is the time, okay, wherein you predict risks, prepare for it. It's always good to spend so much time. It's good to spend so much time in planning, in anticipating, in iterating, in speaking with people, to refine the plan, to make sure you have every detail in place before you execute. I don't know whether you're familiar with the saying that came from Abraham Lincoln. He said, if I'm given 10 hours to cut down a tree, 10 hours to cut down a tree, I will spend 6 hours, the first 6 hours, sharpening my saw. Okay, let's pause for a moment and analyze why he said that. First 6 hours sharpening the saw. Why? Because I don't want to just jump and start cutting the tree and not prepared for it. Right? So if you spend so much time in sharpening your saw, in your planning, then the execution, where you actually implement your systems, you're actually controlling the progress and you're closing it, will be very smooth. I'm telling you, if you screw number 2, then forget about 3, 4, and 5. So if you have bad planning, no matter how diligent you are, no matter how hardworking you are, you're gonna have a hell of a time executing this. Okay. So this is just an illustration. I don't want to go into this. There's a lot of numbers, but maybe after this you can actually read through yourself. The critical path method, like I explained earlier, is a method of actually defining the longest path. There are actually 2 important features of the critical path, or the CPM. All right, the longest path, so that you can actually predict how long your project will really last. Okay, so like I said, right, start and end. So project has a start, has an end. So this one determines your duration, longest duration. Secondly, the CPM helps you analyze how much movement or how much delay all the other tasks can have, which are in parallel with a non-critical task. So if you look at this example, tasks A, B, C, D, E are considered critical tasks because they are the tasks in sequence, because it's waterfall, right? So in sequence, they're in sequence of each other. That means they're predecessors. That means I have to finish A first before B, right? So that's the important feature of waterfall. Let's not forget about that. Waterfall needs processes to happen in sequence. All right. Here it says A, B, C, D, and E are critical tasks, and you can see that it has the longest duration if you add them together. Other tasks, F, G, and H, have some slack or have some delay on it. How I know? Okay, look at the last two numbers of every block, the right two numbers. You will see that the critical tasks will have all the same numbers. Tasks A, 10, 10. Task B, 30, 30. You see? That means you cannot subtract it, okay? The first numbers on the top are actually what we call the forward pass, okay? In any case, later on when you try to read through about this one, it's very interesting. It's a very interesting tool. You can see that tasks F, G, and H, the numbers are not the same. 25, 40, 40, 45. The difference is actually what we call the slack or the delay. You can actually delay the tasks with that number of days in this example. All right, so that's the CPM. Now, let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages of waterfall. Okay, so since waterfall involves tasks that are in sequence with each other, all right, it's very easy to understand. It's easy to execute because I need to finish this first, otherwise I will not be able to do this. For example, you're building a machine, right? Part of the project or part of the process of the project is that you have to do design first. I have to do my design first. Otherwise, I won't know what materials to buy. Try switching these two tasks. You buy the materials first before you design. What's going to happen? It doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense. So here, one of the key advantage of waterfall is that it's simplicity, right? It's very simple. Okay. It also is a model to manage. You know, why do I say that? Why is waterfall an easy model to changes? Okay. For example, I'm already at my implementation stage wherein I am buying my equipment or buying the components that I need to assemble, right? So if at this point in time, my client tells me, oh, I need to change something, it's easy for you to measure that change or the impact of that, right? Because at that point, hey, look, your change, because I'm at this point already, I need to do all of this. I need to reestablish my purchase orders with my contractors. We will have delay because I need to wait for the spare parts to come. You know, all these things. So since it's rigid, there's what you call remeasurement. That's why I don't know whether some of you here have worked in construction. One of the work of a quantity surveyor is actually to remeasure the project. Okay. Third point, of the advantage, it says here stages are ideally completed one at a time without overlay and conflict. That's why in projects, in large and complex projects, you'll see what we call milestones. So in design, right? Once we complete that, we completed a milestone, and then the team celebrates. Okay, so we celebrate that milestone, and then we execute. Okay, we implement. Then once implementation is done, okay, we've already assembled, we're ready for testing. Another milestone, the team celebrates. Okay, so it's very, very clear where you can draw the line and cut through the milestone. Operates well. Okay, Waterfall actually operates well if only requirements are well understood and established. I've worked with several projects before, and I would tell you, some of these projects are executed or initiated by reputable companies, right? Big companies, big oil and gas companies, but you'll be surprised, because once I receive the contract, I would have like one paragraph explaining my specifications for the telecommunication system worth $3 million. $3 million, one paragraph in the spec. Some of you may think, wow, that is a very simple project. One paragraph, if I can deliver that. Actually, these are the projects that you must be more careful of, because it actually entails failed expectations. So what I normally do, if I don't have a detailed specification from the client and I'm supposed to deliver, I put the details myself at the beginning, immediately. If, for example, if you're designing a telephone system, provide a telephone system for me for this facility. This is my building. That point in time, before I even execute, I have to tell him, this is my scope of supply. This is how many. This is the grade of service of the telephony system I'm going to provide you. These are the interfaces. I'm the one supplying that detail. So that later on, when we execute, all expectations are actually set. The most important, and this I would like to give to you as a tip, as a project management practitioner, if you really want to excel in this field, because if you read the project management body of knowledge, there will be what we have 10 knowledge areas. 10 knowledge areas: human resource management, interface management, project initiation management, and all this, right? It's not about money, right? It's not finance management, okay? It's stakeholder management. It's the people, right? It's really the people, I'm telling you. If you could actually manage the people very well, right? There's very high chances that your project will succeed. Okay, so communication skills are very important for a project manager. All right, so don't be surprised if you see some of the project managers. Oh, this project manager only know how to talk. This project manager only knows how to talk. All he does is talk, meeting, talk. Well, that's his job. That's his job, to communicate. All right, and if he does that effectively, then the project will really succeed. Okay, so another advantage of the waterfall is that it's applicable for projects with long durations. Okay, long durations, 6 months or more, basically. So if you have a project that's 6 months or more, waterfall is a very good model to execute. Milestones are well understood, like I mentioned, and process and results are well documented. Take note, when you are doing waterfall projects, expect a lot of documentation, lots and lots of documents, because as I mentioned, when you come up with designs, right, expectations are being set. So expectations must be communicated. For an engineer to an engineer, when they communicate, I will communicate with you effectively, not only by talking, I also communicate with you by drawing. So this is the detailed schematic diagram of the system that you're gonna receive. So you'll expect lots of this. Okay, so seems that it has a lot of advantages, but given that it also has its own set of disadvantages. So the first one, it is cumbersome to correct something. Now it's the other way around. In my previous example, when the client wants to change something, it's easy for you to remeasure the change and impact to your project. But what if you miss something? No, not all of us are perfect, right? Sometimes we miss something. Oh my gosh, I missed something. I forgot to buy this. Then it's very difficult to actually correct that. And if you're actually a project management practitioner, you would have encountered what we call the cost of change. Cost of change in a project. If you're going to plot the cost of changing something in the project, so you move from left to right in your timeline, the cost to change something goes up. That means if you want to change something, change it at the earliest possible time. And just imagine if you're building a building, right? If you wanted to add a floor, you don't do it while it's under construction. Do it while it's in design. So just imagine how much it will cost you to change a building already under construction or while it's still on paper, right? So that is something that you need to take note of. Okay, so another disadvantage, no working product or service is delivered until the end of the project. The client has to wait until it's commissioned before I can actually have the key to my product. So he has to wait, unfortunately, right? And another disadvantage is that it relies heavily on documentation, like I mentioned, okay? Unfortunately, if you're running a waterfall project, then you really need to have a very good documentation management procedure or process. Okay, that's why all my projects, all that I have done, I actually have DC or document control manager under me, working for me. Otherwise, we will have difficulty running project if you don't have that process. All right. Another disadvantage is it requires extensive risk management strategies. Okay, you need to have, like what I said, this crystal ball. Okay, a project manager will always have this crystal ball to predict, what could happen in the future. And I put it in my risk. Okay, oh, that could fail. I'll put it in my risk register. Oh, the engineer could actually fall sick. How do I solve that? I put it in my risk. Oh, the subcontractor or the supplier that I'm actually engaging seems that they are going for bankruptcy in the next few years. I put it in my risk. Or my experience, oh, if we do it that way, we're gonna get in trouble. I put it in my risk. So a good project manager has this crystal ball. Now, what if you're just a starting project manager? No problem. You can always ask a friend, okay, or an expert for you to have, this kind of, if you don't have your own crystal ball, ask someone who has. Okay, so cost of change increases as the project progresses, which I've actually explained a while ago. Okay, so that actually summarizes the advantages and disadvantages of Waterfall. Okay, so the project manager in Waterfall ensures, okay, that processes and activities are executed in order properly. You're gonna just pass this to your engineer, your engineering manager. It's engineer's job, or it's purchasers or procurement's job to follow up with all this. You don't need to micromanage. You just need to make sure that they are done properly. How? Like what I said, you need to have proper processes. You can have an auditor for you to make sure that quality assurance is being done, the processes are being followed. Or you could actually have periodic review of progress to manage issues. Okay. You need to have good documentation skills. Tracking changes. If you're lazy in managing your documentation, you don't control the revision. You won't know which one is the latest one. You're talking to your client. Oh, I'm looking at Rev A here. Then what are you looking at? Oh, I don't know. There's no revision here. How are you going to communicate? Excuse me. Okay. Hold on, guys. Give me 1 minute. Let me just turn on something. All right. Okay, I just turned on something. Okay, so proper approvals are obtained. Okay, before proceeding to the next step. Okay, make sure that those authorized have approved the milestone. For example, you have designs, right? Sometimes you have to submit it to a third party or internally to your company. There are approval stages. To your manager, it needs to approve the design, and then the director needs to approve that design. Sometimes you have to submit this to a professional engineer. Okay, Mr. PEE, please endorse. Oh, sorry, PEE. PECE. PECE, sorry. PECE, please approve. Okay, then approve. All right. Then the schedule is followed accordingly, to acceptable durations. Of course, need to make sure that schedule is controlled. Okay, and then another important thing here is the project metrics. Okay, so as I mentioned, in projects, you need to know what to measure at the start. You need to know how. If you're using S-curves, if you're using percentages, and you need to know it in detail. If you're tracking submissions, how am I going to track and measure submission? Maybe make it simple. If I have 10 documents to submit, maybe I'll give 10 points for each, or 10%. So if I submitted the first one, I'm at 10% progress. At least you have something to measure. Don't be afraid if you make a mistake, because the good thing is you have something, because you can correct it. You know what they say? It's better to have a bad plan than not to have a plan at all. Because if you have a bad plan, at least you can make good of it. You can try to improve it. But if you don't have a plan, then you are planning to fail. Right? And lastly, project manager has a good sense of changes. That's why he needs to know a baseline. Okay, in every project, once you start off a project, you need to establish a baseline. Okay, so the baseline, as I mentioned in the charter, is also part of that. So if you have a budget, it's part of the charter. Okay, this is my budget. So that actually forms part of your initialization, okay, or initiation. All right. So just some case studies here. This is actually one of the projects that I did. This is actually a project that I did for Indonesia. All right, so here we supplied an integrated telecommunication system comprised of CCTV, public address, LAN, in compliance with project specifications. I believe this was about, if I'm not mistaken, about $8 million. So my client was actually Total Energies. Okay, they're a French company working or established in Indonesia. Okay, so let's try to look at this one. I'm going to explain to you how this was executed the waterfall way. Okay, so here, this is a simplified integrated systems project following the waterfall project management model. Okay, so as you can see, the activities are engineering and design, design review and approval, procurement, which means you need to buy, the materials you need. You need to put them together. You need to test it, and you need to clear defects that have been found in the tests. You pack and deliver. So as you can see, the schedule follows the waterfall. Okay, it's in sequence. Okay, of course I had to simplify this for the sake of presenting to you. Okay, now, okay, so that actually ends the part of waterfall. So I hope you have understood what waterfall is about. Now we come to the second part, or section 3 of our outline. Okay, which is the Agile framework. Okay, this is a framework, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so now this is the definition that I could find There are many definitions that can be found on the internet, but for my source here, this actually is a very, very good definition for me to elaborate to you about Agile project management. Okay, so here from workfront.com, it says Agile project management is an iterative approach to project management that focuses on breaking down large projects into more manageable tasks, which are completed in short iterations throughout the project lifecycle. Wow, sounds more complex than Waterfall when we were talking about it a while ago. But anyway, so let's try to dissect this definition, okay, so that we can further appreciate it. Okay, so Agile project management, you see a new word here which you don't find in Waterfall, iterative. You don't find it anywhere there in the definition. Now, iterative is something that means that there's a repetition or cycle of processes that keeps on repeating. Try again, test, all this, I do again, I implement, I test, I deliver. It's iterative. I repeat it, okay? You cannot find this in Waterfall. Next, breaking down. Now this is similar to Waterfall because in Waterfall, you're actually breaking down the project into stages. Feasibility, design, implementation, you're also breaking it down, okay? So in this aspect, they're similar. Now I see this word again, short iterations. Wait a minute, I already saw that iteration there. Now I see short iterations again. Why? So the project is split into smaller iterations. Now this is where the advantage of the Agile project management framework is really, okay? Let me elaborate on that, okay? So here in this slide, you can see the straight flow of Waterfall project, right? Design, implement, test, deliver. You do one activity after the other, and your project timeline is one straight line. Very simple. Now let's look at Agile. What is this? Some of you may think, I design at the first stage of the project, I implement, I test, I deliver, the first part of the project. Midway, I also do this, design, implement, test, deliver. Lastly, I still do the same, design, implement, test, deliver. It's like operation cycle within a project, but actually it is not, because it still is a project. It has a start and an end. No? So what is this? What is this iterations that we see here? Now this every circle here that you see, or oval shaped a flow of processes that you see here are actually called iterations. Iterations. Why do we have to do this in Agile? Okay. First and foremost, I would like to explain to you the Agile Manifesto. So what is this Agile Manifesto? Manifesto, is defined as a swear or an oath to mankind or to a certain group of people. This is my commitment to you. Okay, so the Agile principles are actually governed by this manifesto, and as you can see from here, the Agile Manifesto was actually initiated by software developers. That's why many people think that the Agile is actually software, Agile software, Scrum software, Kanban software. Okay, because based on history, it was actually initiated or started off by software developers. So this manifesto, as you can see later on, we're going to go through each and every point, right? Is very good in its aspect, because it's, I would say that the goal of each is actually not self-serving. All right, we'll go through each one later. Okay, looking at this, you see our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. Continuous delivery. Continuous delivery. Okay. Why is it continuous? Okay. So, the Agile Manifesto, as you can see from here, tries to prioritize on certain aspects of a project over the other, which actually makes sense, right? In some area, it makes sense. For example, here, the first one in green, right? The Agile Manifesto gives importance to individual interactions over processes and tools, right? Over processes and tools. Why? We will see later. Why is the Agile Manifesto giving importance to interactions rather than processes and tools? Okay. Working software or working product. Okay. For some of you who may not be working in software. I'm not heavily working in software. Okay. So working software or working product over comprehensive documentation. Wow. Earlier on, Mr. Tupaz, you were saying that the waterfall needs extensive, documentation. But in Agile, you will see there's a big difference because here they want to produce more rather than writing. Wow, this sounds better. We will see later. Okay, we'll see later. Customer collaboration. It's in dark blue. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Wow. Sounds good. Sounds good because instead of me arguing with my customer because of contract issues, I'm actually collaborating with the customer. Wow, collaboration is actually a very positive word, right? And in here also we find responding to change over following a plan. That sounds ironic now because projects should follow a plan, But, in every project, no matter how well you've planned and prepared for it, not everything goes according to plan. You can only optimize it, minimize it by, giving planning effort. But I cannot guarantee you, no one can guarantee that a project will not have problems, no matter how small, or a deviation on the plan. So Agile actually emphasizes on response to that, right? Agility, is a word that defines your, a capability or a person's characteristic to, to move around, to maneuver, to respond to changes, right? Okay, so these 4 points, why are they actually emphasizing this? Okay, so coming back to this, as you can see, second point, changing requirements. So in Waterfall, you may think, oh, I don't like change because I'm firm. My plan is rigid, right? I'm prepared for change, but it really is unpleasant. In Waterfall, you feel that it's unpleasant. Oh, client changed again. Oh my gosh, we have to come back to the drawing board, redesign. In Agile, it's actually welcome. You want to change something? Go, change. Another emphasis here. Okay, I'll skip on some of this. Okay, number 8, the most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within a development team is face-to-face conversation. That means if you're a shy person, this is really gonna be tough. But I mean, there are ways of actually handling that. But communication is key, right? Later on, I'm gonna explain why this is important. Okay. Okay. In Agile, there are actually many frameworks. I believe you've heard many of these or some of this, okay? Scrum, Kanban, Lean, Extreme Programming, Crystal, Dynamic, But today I want to focus on one so that actually can teach a focus to all of you and you can appreciate it further. as we make it more simple. Okay, so today or tonight we'll be actually talking about the Scrum framework. Scrum framework, which I'm actually certified on. Okay. Okay. This picture here summarizes of what a Scrum framework is. I would suggest if some of you are interested in Scrum or Agile, snap a photo of this screen because it summarizes it. Okay, as you can see, who the people are and what the artifacts are. Okay, so what we have are some of the people. Let's look at the people. So you have product owner. Oh, that's new. The team. Oh, I know them. Okay, that's us. The Scrum Master. Oh, the heck is this person? Sounds like scam. No, actually, it's not scam. It's Scrum. Okay, Scrum Master. Okay, and then you do have activities here called the Scrum daily Scrum meetings, sprint review, another meeting, and the sprint retrospective is another meeting. But in Agile, long meetings are actually not supported or discouraged. Okay, long meetings. These are very short activities. So as you can see from here, the product owner, okay, is the key focal point to the client in terms of technical aspect. What's required? What features do we want? Okay, and then the product backlog is actually a list or a board listing down features, stories, of what the client wants. No, stories is a kind of sarcastic word, actually, story, because sometimes a client cannot explain to you something in a technical terms, right? So you write a story. Okay, Mr. Client, just write me a story that you want. Then the client will tell you, oh, okay, I want a software that does this. Okay, that's your story. But for you, it's a feature. It's something that you need to deliver. So it's part of the product backlog. And then you do have what you call the sprint planning meeting together with the team. This is how you do your sprints. Okay. Now, a sprint is an important concept in Scrum. Okay, in Scrum, in Agile, because a sprint is your break or a time box. If some of you are actually practicing Scrum or have been practicing that, then the sprint is actually a time box which you actually put in the project. It does not complete the project. Okay, so you break this chunk of time, you box it, called a sprint. Normally the duration is 1 to 4 weeks. 4 weeks is already too long. Most of the sprints are actually 2 weeks. Okay, so when you plan a sprint, you actually take on from your product backlog, because the product backlog will have a lot. So what you do, you agree, okay, for the sprint, we can only do these tasks, these features, we put it on the sprint. Maybe out of 10, 3. Then the team will agree, facilitated by the Scrum Master. Okay, we agree, the first sprint, these 3 features first. That's our sprint. The important thing is every sprint that you do must have a deliverable called the product increment. You must deliver something. You must deliver a product, whatever that is. Okay, so that sprint, 1 to 2 weeks, these 3 features must have something working. Then at the end of it, or while you're doing that, you need to have what you call daily scrums. Okay, every day. Now this daily scrums is 15 minutes only. 15 minutes only. That's it. The purpose of the daily scrum is just for you to catch up, say, hey, what is actually stopping you from continuing with your work? Or is there, because we already agreed on what we need to accomplish. Are we getting delayed or not? Oh, everything's still on time. Okay. Is anyone having a blockage in the work, or a resource getting fewer, or a blockage for you to complete your work? No, everything's okay. Okay, end meeting, then proceed with the work. Okay, that is just to make sure that, you know, you are not actually doing something, or at the end of the sprint you discover you have not accomplished something because you missed discussing that, oh, I could have helped you if you would have just told me. Okay, and then at the end of the scrum, let's say you have a 2 weeks at the end of the sprint, let's say you had a 2-week sprint, you need to have a sprint review. Now the sprint review is a bit longer, maybe an hour, 2 hours, for you to actually check what are the activities that we could have done to actually improve our process. You know, how we could have ordered our tasks properly. You know, did we not talk you know, in a way that we're supposed to, you know, that's why we're actually having this one. So sprint review will include that, a bit of that, and then just to make sure that, oh, we planned at the beginning 3 tasks out of 10. Now where are we? Did we accomplish that or no? Now on the sprint review, you discuss, okay, because of the restrictions, we only accomplished 2 out of 3. Okay, so that's a failure, right? That's a failure because you're supposed to accomplish 3 features or 3 tasks from the backlog. You accomplished only 2 on your sprint review. What does that mean? Is that Scrum a failure? As a matter of fact, no, because Scrum actually forces you to fail, but it forces you to fail early. This is an important concept of Scrum. You are forced to fail early and fail hard. But it's good to fail early rather than late, because if you fail early, you fail small. All right, you fail small and then you can iterate. That's why there's iteration. So on the sprint review, what could we do to change this further? Okay, so let's reprioritize our sprint planning. So on the sprint review, you do your sprint planning again. Okay, so we can only do 2. So our velocity is only 2. So next, we again do 2, you know, on the next sprint, something like that. Now on the sprint retrospective, this is where you emphasize more on how you could have done things better. Okay, could we improve our process, exchange of information, what tools do we need? No? That's the sprint retrospective. Okay, so it's about, let's say 2 hours, 3 hours meeting, or 4 hours meeting. Maybe that's too long already. There's involvement of the product owner, okay, for the sprint retrospective. Okay, here you also see an artifact. We call this an artifact: burn down or burn up chart. What is this burn down chart? It's actually a simple chart that actually shows you the tasks. It's like an S-curve, basically. It's like an S-curve, but it actually shows you accumulation of or a reduction as time progresses of the work that you have to do against a forecast. Excuse me. Now, actually, this chart is actually dynamic, and it's an artifact used by the Scrum Master to actually check to track the progress. Right? Okay. So this image here paints 1,000 words. Okay. So this is important. Okay. So let's look at the Scrum roles. Let's look at the Scrum team. Product owner, member 1. Scrum Master, member 2. And the team members, role number 3. Something missing here, or some of you may have a wrong notion. Maybe some of you have a wrong notion. Oh, you know what? In Scrum, the Scrum Master is the project manager. Wrong. Or maybe you say, oh, the product owner is the project manager. Wrong. In Scrum, there is no project manager. As a matter of fact, this actually applies to most of the Agile frameworks. This project manager role is actually spread across these 3 roles. Spread across. Okay, so the product owner owns what is desired. is the focal point with the client, what features needs to be done, what features are supposed to be in the product, and why. Because there has to be, excuse me, a justification of why it's desired, right? Why it's part of what we need to deliver. Scrum Master is actually a facilitator, making sure, the Scrum Master has a very big responsibility here because he needs to make sure that the Scrum methods and the Scrum tools are actually running. It's actually a heartbeat. He needs to make sure that the methods, the meetings are happening, the sprint backlog, the product backlog are being updated, reprioritized, people see each other. No, he's that one. People come on time. The team members are the ones who actually execute the job. They're the developers or the programmers or the system engineers. All right, 3 roles only. No project manager. Okay, so what are Scrum events, which you saw in the nice picture 3 slides back? Okay, so sprint planning, daily Scrum, sprint review, and sprint retrospective. All right. So yeah, so as you can see, they have different times. You see, so for the sprint planning, which actually happens at the very beginning, from the backlog, because the backlog, imagine it a big board, a big white board with lots of post-it notes. You know what post-it is, right? A sticky note. Inside that sticky note tells you the story, what needs to be done, or called the feature. Has the product backlog, a lot of it. Now, in the sprint planning, we discuss, okay, this one is really needed, and here you discuss the story points, how much effort is needed, you estimate, and then the daily Scrum is a 15 minutes, you see, always 15 minutes, always. Sprint review, where you actually check your velocity, check whether you have done it, or completed the work properly, right? The sprint review after sprint is completed is about 4 hours, and sprint retrospective is about 3 hours. Okay, this is the duration. So if you think Scrum or Agile is actually meeting demanding, no, actually no, because it actually specifies how it should be managed properly. Okay. Now, Scrum artifacts is what Scrum artifacts. Okay, so product backlog I explained, and then from here a list of the features that you need to deliver, and then you select from this. You put in your sprint. Maybe out of 25 becomes a sprint. Now the increment is important because it's what you deliver. One of the important features here is definition of done. Okay, and many engineers fail here. Okay, how can we say that the job is done? For example, in a meeting, okay, Mr. Engineer, could you please submit this on Friday? Yes, I'll do. Everybody adjourns in a meeting. Come Friday, Mr. Engineer, have you submitted this? Yeah, I submitted this, but it did not reach the client. No, I actually submitted it to my manager already. In the mind of the the superior or the supervisor, the engineer is supposed to submit to the client, but for him, the definition is for him to submit to his manager, which actually is there's no alignment of the definition. So it has to be very specific. We have to agree. The definition of work done is that once the client receives it, that's done. We be very specific to avoid problems later. Okay. Product increment here is a funny depiction in this diagram. Okay. If you try to adapt this physically, the concept of Scrum. Here you have 5 sprints, and every sprint must deliver an increment. As you can see here, okay, increment 1, I delivered a skateboard. Increment 2, I delivered a scooter, with a handlebar here. Increment 3 or sprint 3, I delivered a bike. Sprint 4, I delivered a motorbike. Sprint 5, I delivered a car. But you deliver actually the entire duration of the project. And because I have something here that the client can use already. So that is the concept of Scrum. So here, the first sprint, yeah, it's a skateboard, but you can use it to actually go from one place. You move along, you improve. But every single increment is a new product. It's a new product by itself. New product by itself. Sprint 1, 3 floors. Sprint 2, 4, 5, 6 floors. No, it's not like that. It's not like that. Okay. Okay. Now, for you to actually appreciate how Scrum is practiced, we'll try to make a case study, by developing an application for a client, okay, for selling handmade products. Well, let's say you want to talk to, you have this passion for making handicrafts, and you want a software or an app to actually to sell your handicrafts, and you have very limited budget. So you spoke to a developer which practices Scrum. So let's see how this is done. Okay, make a simple example. Okay, so the first one, there will be a product backlog. This product backlog will contain all the things that you want, your stories as a client. So here, I want this app to display all the products with description and images. The user must be able to select product and add to the cart, all these things. And the user must be able to make payment via PayPal. And then eventually the user must be able to make payment via credit cards and all these things. You also put there your specific your requirement. The user must be able to make custom requests for selected items, for example, the color. So it's a feature, right? And then lastly, number 6, you said the user is able to insert images for printing on products. So that's a feature. That's a feature. So after the planning, the sprint planning, okay, the first sprint, it was discussed by the team. It's the team that decides, all right? Not the Scrum Master, not the product owner, not the team members. It's the team that decides. The team, the entire team, all right? Take note. That they only do 3 first, but they'll be able to deliver the increment. So the first sprint must contain the displays, the display of the products. The user must be able to add to the cart and at least make payment via PayPal. That's all. But it does not contain all the features yet. But it's okay. Let's do this. 3-week sprint. 3-week sprint. Then they did it. A working software after 3 weeks, but still limited. Still limited. Some clients are still, frustrated. There's no Visa. There's no Master. No whatever. But it can be used already. It can be used. Sprint 2. They added on the sprint backlog. Okay, the user is able to make credit card payments. Then the user is able to make custom requests on selected items. So the team did this, interfaced with the software, a new app, okay, with all these features, new features. Wow, V.1.2. Okay, new software. Okay, there are new features. An increment is delivered. All right, and lastly, two features remaining. By sprint 3, 2 weeks we can deliver. Okay, the team is very confident. I would say the last 2 features that had to be delivered: user is able to insert images, and user is able to make delivery options. Take note. Why I put this on red? Make this on red because it was not originally part of the first one, right? Actually, this requirement was made midway while they're executing the sprints. The client said, I want to have my users have delivery options. Okay, so what did the product owner say? Agile says you must welcome. So I welcome the change. No problem. Let's put it on the product backlog. We're gonna do it, but we'll do it later. Okay, we welcomed it. Okay, so sprint 3 came. It was discussed that, okay, we are able to do the last feature plus this changed feature and integrate it to version 1.3. Final app is delivered. Client happy and done fast. The good thing is he was already able to use the software because he was able to sell it already by sprint 1. He was already starting to sell. If I use Waterfall here, I would have to wait until the end before I can start using the software, right? By definition of Waterfall. So now you can see. So this illustrates the power of Scrum Agile. Okay, advantages and disadvantages of Agile. I emphasized 3 on each side. Okay, so advantage, it promotes teamwork and cross-training because you collaborate, right? You talk with each other. Functionality can be developed rapidly and demonstrated because you iterate each step. Develop, test, deliver, develop, test, design, deliver. You know? So all these are actually being done repeatedly. So you're actually delivering. And the client appreciates it because I see something tangible. I can use something already. And then another advantage is suitable for fixed or changing requirements. Either fixed or changing, no problem. If the client doesn't have the full visibility of his product at the start, it's okay. Later on, you can think about it. They'll include in the product backlog. Okay, but the disadvantages. It's not suitable for handling complex dependencies. All right? If it's something physical. It's something physical, right? You saw the illustration joke that I had, the 5 sprints, skateboard, right? And we do have scooter, bike, motorbike, and then the car, right? Okay, so if you are supposed to deliver a working car, you would probably think, no, I need to have the chassis first, and then the engine, then the wheels, then the seats, and then the body. No, in Agile, it's very difficult to actually do that because I must be able to deliver something working. You cannot just deliver something that, you cannot deliver a chassis. I cannot use it. Okay. So if you have that complex dependency in your project, Agile will not be not a good choice. Second, depends heavily on customer interaction. You need to have that good communication. The problem here is that sometimes customers are also not responsive. Okay, you may be, you may be a proactive person, but sometimes the customers are not. So this becomes a problem. This becomes a problem because you need the customer to participate closely. Okay. Lastly, transfer technology to new team members may be quite challenging due to lack of documentation. This is the drawback. If you don't have documentation, if you have a newbie coming in, where do I start? Now this becomes a problem. That's why in Scrum or Agile, normally members are backup of each other, or they have cross trainings. They need to have that strength of each other. If I'm trained with this type of application, the other guy must also have, so that we can take over each other. That's how you solve it in Scrum. Okay, but it becomes a disadvantage actually. Okay, I hope you are still awake. In time, I've been speaking for almost 1.5 hours. We have reached the conclusion. Now that we are here, I want to have participation from you. I just have one question. Just have one question here. Okay, at this point, could I ask which method is better? So those who say Agile, could you please raise your hands? I want to see a raise of hands. Agile is better. Agile is better. Okay, I see. Agile is better. Wow. Okay, good. Wow, a lot of Agile supporters here. Okay, some are changing their minds. Okay, we have 74. Okay, 78. Oof. Okay, it's good. It's still increasing. Still some. Okay, we can end here. Okay. Okay, I had there about 101. Unclick. So I have 101 Agile supporters. That was like 15 seconds of voting. Okay. Now, Waterfall. Who says Waterfall is still better? No matter what you say, still better. Raise your hands. Now this is faster. Support the Scrum. Scrum is for software. How can you apply that, in construction? Okay. Another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so I have about 109. I saw 109 numbers. You can put down your hands. Thank you very much. So the number is almost there. Same. Seems like we've split, 15 seconds of voting from one side to the other. Seems that we're the same, 50-50. 50-50. Let's do some comparison. So for Waterfall, due to the getting of risk agreement at the beginning of the process, Waterfall reduces the risks in the firm if we use fixed price contracts. Agile works well. I think some of you might have this question already. I believe some of the questions here is about contracts. Agile works well with time and material, meaning I pay by the hour. If fixed price, it's very tough to exercise Agile. Okay, I hope I've answered your question already. Hey, contract. What about contract? Cost impact for labor. Now, Agile works well with time and material. Waterfall, a detailed description needs to implement Waterfall, meaning the specifications need to be very, very detailed to start. Okay. For Agile, you may change the description anytime. Okay, it embraces change. Waterfall, the process is always straightforward. There's a flow of information, the flow of processes. Okay, so the project manager is key to this step, the Waterfall, because there must be a driver or a captain of the ship maneuvering. Okay, now Agile team members are interchangeable, so they work faster. You see here, please take note. In Agile, there is no need for project managers. Take note. No need for project managers, as the project managers are managed by the entire team. They share the responsibility. Okay. Number 5, team coordination synchronization looks rather limited for Waterfall because they tend to like work in silo, because design only. I do design. Engineers are the focus of design. Okay, I implement. So it's procurement's turn. So they somehow tend to work in silos because each team or each department actually has roles that are more emphasized on every stage of the project. Method implies small but dedicated teams with high degree of coordination and synchronization. They always talk to each other. All members talk to each other every day, right? Every day they coordinate. Okay. And then lastly, business analysis prepares requirements before the project beginning. Okay. So there must be a business case. Okay. But in Agile, Mr. JC, it depends. Okay, so where do you apply Waterfall? Okay, you apply Waterfall if the project has very complex, of course, building a building. Okay, the project is large, which will consist of numerous resources, a huge number of engineers, 5 procurement teams, 20 technicians, 10 subcontractors. It's too huge. Use Waterfall. Use Waterfall. Okay, although we do have what we call integrated Scrum, where we do have smaller Scrum teams that are interfaced with each other through the product owner, but still it has some limitations also. Okay. Number 3, the project is expected to have a long duration. So if it's long duration, 1 to 5 years, industrial project, use Waterfall. Don't use Scrum. There's no need to hurry, right? There's no need to hurry. Okay, we can manage the progress through the milestone. Okay, we can have money through the milestones. Okay, now where do I apply Agile? Apply Agile if the project has very short duration, requires a small dedicated team. Now, Scrum, Agile actually promotes dedication. Take note. Sorry, if you really want to practice Scrum in your organization, please take note. Dedication is key because they need to stay focused. The Scrum Master has the responsibility of protecting the sprint. Take note, protecting the sprint. That means if somebody wants to disturb my team members in developing because they want this to be inserted first, sorry, forget it. My sprint is my Bible, my priority right now. Okay, so the Scrum Master is a protector of the sprint. Okay, the project can be broken down into multiple delivery or increments. So if you can actually, if you're able to deliver the product in small, deliverable, tangible ways, right? Then Agile is good. Agile is key. You know, if you can deliver your product in Lego, you know, and then the first Lego block, it's usable already by the client, then apply Agile. Okay. Lastly, the customer can actively participate. Take note. Customer can actively participate. There must be close collaboration with the customer, unfortunately. So if your customer is a very busy person, then might as well forget about Agile, because the best way of doing this is talking to that client in one day, sitting, getting everything that he wants, she wants in one day. Then you can probably meet him 2 months, 3 months later. Right? So it's quite tough to actually do that in Agile. So you have to apply Waterfall. Okay, now, what about mixing them? Maybe some of you thought, hey, what about mixing the two? Okay, hybrid. Okay, there are certain ways of actually hybriding the two. Okay, so number one, daily scrums can be implemented to focus in solving a particular complex problem. For example, you're doing a waterfall project. Let's say providing a communication system for a railway, right? And while you were doing that, you actually encountered a very difficult problem. Very difficult problem. What you can do, take that problem out because it's complex, treat it as a project, a Scrum project, which you can actually complete in 2 months, let's say, for you to solve. You apply Scrum principle. That is possible. That is possible. All right. Number two, if a prototype can be considered as a project deliverable. Okay, if after inspection and iteration through customer feedback, it can be considered as a product, it can be done. I've done this before. I've done this before for a physical project when I was actually dealing with Petronas. Because as a project manager, you have to be experienced and familiar with the industry. So they want a working prototype, and at the same time, they actually want they actually want to speed up one and prioritize on raw water. And I knew this would be coming because the first package that to normally execute their construction and supply is water, right? So I need to supply something for water that they can use, a system that they can use. So what I did, I used the prototype set for the racks or the telecommunication systems that I'm going to supply. So building this prototype, we used it to actually agree on how the rest of the racks or the equipment assembly will look like in the subsequent deliveries. At the same time, once I fixed up their comments on this set, I delivered and supplied it to the raw water contractor. So here, Agile concept was applied for a physical project. Number three, to speed up approval processes, a close collaboration or workshop with the customer can be implemented. So if, for example, because maybe you've worked in projects wherein you're actually communicating with your client through document control only. I email you, you comment on the email, and then it takes some time for you to agree. Ding dong, we call it ding dong or ping pong exchange, and then we're just exchanging, we're wasting time. Might as well apply Scrum by close collaboration. We sit down, maybe 1 week, and close off your issues, and then agree there. Put it in the minutes of meeting that okay, this one you approve, then we can close it. Rather than us ding donging, and then spending months. If we can sit down 1 week, close it off, it's faster. That's Agile. Okay. Given the fact that some aspects can be mixed, it's not advisable to mix completely. because it will defeat the purpose. For example, you're applying documentation with Agile, it won't work. It won't work. You will just frustrate your team if you expect so many documentations to your Scrum team. Okay, if you expect so much documentation from your Scrum team, then it will fail. It will fail. Right? So there still is a way to hybrid this. Okay. Okay. Now we've come to the end. I hope I did not. Yeah, I still am within it. Okay. So I still have 5 minutes for Q&A. I hope it did not exceed. All right. So yeah. So I pass the mic to you again, Jacqueline. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for that very, very informative presentation and discussion about the differences between Agile and Waterfall. Let me just share my screen. Okay. So we'll now proceed on the question and answer portion. So we have here some questions coming from our Q&A portion ng ating Zoom platform. So let's start with our first question. This is from, I think this is from Engineer Vernie Virgilio Sudario. On the subway project here in the Philippines, are we on the project timeline? What are the challenges that you're encountering, especially on the implementation?
Okay, thanks, Jacqueline. There are two questions here, actually, right? Two questions in one. The first one, contractually, I'm not supposed to say anything about it. So I hope you can forgive me if I cannot answer exactly that question. All right. Number two, what are the challenges that you're encountering, especially on the implementation where there are many? Okay. So of course, as an ECE, right? So I'm actually in charge of the full. I'm the systems engineer manager for the full communication systems of the railway. There are many challenges that we already are facing. Because in terms of the way it's being put together, in the demands of the project, because sometimes they're expecting groundbreaking activities already, and some of the locations they're already wanting to operate. For example, I'm giving you a scenario. For example, the first 4, I'm gonna pick at random, right? Valenzuela, you know, or Monumento, maybe all these stations, they want to make it operational first, right? Make it operational first and then the rest to follow. Actually, that sounds like Agile, right? If you look at it, it sounds Agile. Because I want the first 4 stations to be running and I want to make money out of it first while you're doing the rest. So what is a problem for us there? Migration. Yes, we need to deliver a full working system with everything in it already, everything in it, working software, you know, all the facilities, databases, CCTV systems, PA systems, working for all those 4, right? It's like an Agile already. And then once we actually couple it with the rest, we must be able to successfully migrate it. That's why we call it migration. People think it's just it's an upgrade or a connection. Actually, it's not a connection because it's a migration to another system. So that's Agile already. So you can see. So there's certain concepts in a waterfall project that sounds Agile already. So I hope I answered.
From Engineer Albert Anthony Delgado, for life safety type of projects like complete installation or replacement of fire alarm automation system in a commercial or residential building, where installation execution will render a that it's part of the disadvantages, or do we have an alternate method to present to the client?
Okay, I'm going to add one careful consideration here. When it comes to because this question actually entails something that I've experienced also. You know, when you're actually doing life safety systems, especially for me, I also did oil and gas, right? We do have certification, and certifications are actually important milestones in the project. So if you talk about life safety systems, it's kind of difficult to actually apply Agile, because in Agile, there's some kind of experimentation. If you have life safety system, it actually has to go through a process of certification. And certification, I'm telling you, is a very systematic process. So right there and then already, you're already limited by doing waterfall. So unfortunately, you'll be disadvantaged with Waterfall already. But it doesn't mean you cannot apply Agile. What you can do is that, for example, in your certification, let's say, because I also have fire alarm experience, I work with Honeywell. If, for example, our migration from Niagara IP from analog Honeywell, DDC, the controllers, right? We have to have it certified, right? For the migration itself of the software only, you can actually apply Scrum. So you can actually inform your client, okay, so for this section, we'll apply Scrum. For the rest of the hardware, we have to actually apply what we call the waterfall method for certification. It still is possible, but you need to be clever to actually apply all these things for your client to appreciate it. Okay.
I hope that answers Engineer Delgado's question regarding about like life safety type of projects.
Okay.
We'll now proceed to the next question, sir. I hope this won't mind you. But what PMI certification can you recommend? Does PMP cover Agile concepts as well? Please recommend the process of PMI certification and continuing education for project management professionals. Do we need to engage with PMI Philippines chapter or with PMI directly? Thank you.
Okay. Multiple questions, but I'll be able to answer. Don't worry. PMI certification, you have PMP, but they have a separate certification for Agile practitioner. So you have Agile Professional Agile Management Practitioner, PAGP, Agile Practitioner, Professional Agile Management Practitioner. Okay. So those certifications are actually different from each other. When you talk about PMP certification, it only includes mainly the waterfall method, but there then itself, it's very. I would like to emphasize here, but I don't want to brag or to I would say commercially promote PMP, but PMP is. I'm telling you. Till now, I thought, for so many years PMP is. So if you want to go through PMP, if you want to go through project management, I would suggest you go through PMP, and then if you want to go through Agile project management practice, there are many ways of doing that. You can actually take it from Scrum Alliance. Like for me, I took Certified Scrum Master, all right? Or you can actually take it from PMI, the Professional Agile Practitioner certification. Okay, now the process will involve, if it still is the same, PMI certification will require experience, okay, industrial experience. And then you need 40 hours of contact training. So you need to actually engage a licensed PMI agency to give you that training, because you need to report that 40 contact hours. All right. After that, you need to prepare for your exam. Now, this exam is a very, very difficult exam. So all PMPs here, please be proud of yourself, because I had a director before. He admitted to me, JC, I admit to you, all these tools that you're doing now, this charter, this risk management, this risk register, all these things that you're doing now, I really thank you, because he has been a director for many years. And yet he failed his PMP twice, and he has not gotten his certification still. So it is a very tough exam. You need to prepare for it. For me, I took about 5 to 6 weeks to prepare for it. I really dedicated time, and I took, luckily for me, one take I got it. Okay. Do we need to engage PMI Philippines chapter? No, actually. What you can do is you can actually find online company that can provide you the training, the 40 hours contact training that I mentioned. Okay, then so that you could qualify for the exam, you look for this. You look for an agency that could provide you the 40 hours training, include in the package the exam, and a retake exam, if possible. I hope that answers that.
Thank you so much, Engineer Tupaz. Now, we still have a lot of questions from our very engaged participants. However,
Okay.
due to time constraints, we can
No
only
problem, no
answer
problem. I
10
mean,
questions.
if everyone is still, I can see that, from 1,200 participants, now we are 1,300. I thought they'll be leaving
Yes,
me, no?
sir.
I was expecting, at this point in time, people will be sleepy and then this will just be like 200, 300 participants. But as a matter of fact, it is increasing. So please keep the questions coming.
Okay, sir. So this next question is from an anonymous attendee. So I am currently a software developer and my company has been practicing Agile, specifically Scrum, for 2 years now. Just curious, since I also had some experience in field work before, system integrator for plants, prior to being a developer, and how can we effectively integrate Agile in projects that seem to have dependencies on hardware shipments and fieldwork? Can we still use Scrum or would a different framework fit this workflow?
Okay, I'm going to give you a similar example of the example that I've given a while ago. Field work. Field work may look easy, but when we do commissioning, just to share with you, we've done commissioning for I cannot count on my fingers already. Oil and gas, offshore, my field engineers, when they go to site, they encounter lots of problems. In our plan, in our commissioning procedures, no matter how we prepare, it still is very tough. So what you can do, as I mentioned, right? So the software part, definitely you can apply Scrum. Okay, definitely you can apply Scrum. But for the hardware type, or those that are concerned physically, okay, you can apply Scrum principles through specifying or applying that to a particular problem. So for example, in your on field, right? And I believe for system integrator for plants, you have you normally do commissioning, for example, of a testing of SCADA system, let's say. So let's say your SCADA system is a radio SCADA, chassis type, so all your interfaces are actually chassis type, and it actually has a base station. And let's say you're actually connecting remotely through unmanned platforms, right? So you're getting SCADA information from other unmanned platforms through a central SCADA system. Unfortunately, when you were doing your pre-commissioning, tuning your antennas, pointing it there, right? You cannot get the signal level that you require to start commissioning. How the heck are you going to solve that? So what you can do to solve that particular problem, you can apply Scrum. You can apply Scrum. How? Okay, what you do? Okay, you set up a meeting with your team. Okay, what do you think are the problems here? So everybody can contribute, brainstorm. Antenna problem, cable problem, put it down. So when you actually sit down, this is like your product backlog in Post-its. Okay, these are your theories. Okay, then you try to eliminate each of the theories, right? Because each, according to your brainstorming, only one of these or maybe a combination of this would be the problem. What you can do, we plan in sprints to eliminate these possibilities. How we do that? Okay, sprint 1. Okay, let's try to eliminate this theory number 1 and this theory number 2 by conducting these tests for the first sprint. You do that. Oh, we tested. It's okay. Sprint 2, you take 2 again. You get me? So here, until you get to a point that, oh, now we're final. Okay, now this is the problem. Let's apply that and solve the problem. So that's how you can apply it. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you so much, Engineer Tupaz, for answering those questions. But however, po talaga, due to time constraints, we'll stop on this question.
Oh, too bad.
Sir, do you have any contact, where they can contact you to ask you their questions?
Yeah, sure. I can actually provide an email address, personal email address if required later on. I don't know how, here or perhaps through our channels. Through our interface with from national to our chapter here, then I can provide. I'm open.
Sure, sir.
Yeah.
Sure, sir. No problem po.
Thank
Kasi
you.
we still have a lot of questions coming from our very engaged participants
Wow.
today.
Thank you very
Yes,
much.
sir.
I'm so sorry. Actually, okay pa ako, no? Nakapagkape ko eh. So I'm good. But if we're limited with time because maybe some of us are still preparing for work tomorrow,
Yes,
then
sir.
maybe next time or maybe next talk.
Okay. Of course, sir, we'll be inviting you over and over again because we have a lot of participants who are very, very interested in these types of topics. I hope
No problem.
you paunlakan niyo pa rin po kami next
No
time
problem,
na
no problem.
we
Yeah, kasi
invite
because
you.
engineering and project management, they think are two separate disciplines. Eh. But more powerful engineers are also good project managers. So
Yes, sir.
it is a very good skill to invest on. So that's my advice.
Thank you so much sir, for very, very informative po again na discussion about project management. So please stay on the spotlight po as we award you the of appreciation. So let's now have Engineer Ferdy N. Toledo, the current IECEP Japan Governor.
Thank you, Engineer Tupaz, for that wonderful talk. I will now read the content of your plaque of appreciation. Institute of Electronics Engineer of the Philippines Incorporated awarded this plaque of appreciation to Engineer Jose Carlos C. Tupaz VI in grateful recognition of his expertise, professional competence, and invaluable service rendered as resource speaker during the 71st Annual General Membership Meeting and Convention with the theme of Embracing Digital Transformation in the Time of New Normal, given this 28th of November 2021. Signed by Dr. Lori Lisa D. Bulay-Og, PECE, e-AGM 2021 Convention Chairman and IECEP Secretary General. And signed also by Dr. Michelle D. Lawas, PECE, IECEP President. Okay.
Thank you very much. It's a very prestigious and I'm honored. Thank you very much. Actually, it's a privilege. Very useful for our participants this evening. All right.
Yes, sir. Once again po, on behalf of IECEP Incorporated, we'd like to extend our gratitude for lending us your time today to discuss about project management. Thank you so much once again, Engineer Jose Carlos C. Tupaz VI. Thank you so much po. And of course, I would like to remind our participants to do not forget to fill out the attendance link and the evaluation form. The links for those evaluation and attendance links for the technical session 1 for today and technical session or second technical session for today then. So that would be the 5th technical sessions or session. So session and 6th technical session for the duration of our e-AGM. The link are already posted in the chat box. And you can access those links until 12 noon of November 30. So that would be the basis of your attendances and for you to be able to get the CPD points coming from our seminar. Okay, so just a gentle reminder, do not forget to fill out the evaluation and attendance. Links are already posted on the chat box. Okay, so that concludes the second day of this year's annual General Membership Meeting and Convention, or dubbed as e-AGM 2.0, with the theme of embracing digital transformation in the time of new normal. Before we end our day, let's have a sneak peek of what will happen tomorrow, third day of our e-AGM 2.0. So we'll be having another set of technical session. The first technical session would be for instrumentation and control and micro power electronics. The discussion will be from Mr. Jayaprakash J.P. Velashami, about industrial digital transformation. The second technical session for tomorrow is going to be with Engineer Aaron Lenin G. Javier for ICT and Emerging Technology for the discussion about data acquisition through Modbus communication protocol. I know we all can't wait for tomorrow's event, so make sure to be with us again. Okay, and for tomorrow, I will be with you again. Ako din po ang magiging moderator ninyo. So, huwag po kayong magsasawa na panoorin at sumubaybay sa ating 8-day webinar series. And of course, our 8-day committees who have been dedicating and committing their time. We would like to especially recognize the hard work and the dedication of our technical team comprising of members from IECEP Qatar, Cavite, Rizal, Singapore, and SOC Sargent. Of course, the technical team is under the leadership of Engineer Herson O. Baton. Our acknowledgement extends to our registration and post-event team, our silent warriors working behind the scenes and making sure that your registration and attendance are validated all throughout the e-AGM 2.0. The registration is chaired by Engineer Paulo Arla Laguna and co-chaired by Engineer Kensley Armon Manese with the assistance of IECEP Qatar and Singapore. And of course, our post-event committee is chaired by Engineer Jomer V. Katipon, along with IECEP Pampanga, Tarlac, CAR, Singapore, Cavite, and Cebu. And of course, we would also like to acknowledge our sponsors who are instrumental in the conduct of this event. First is Wireless Link Technologies, AWS Distribution Philippines Corporation, Siemens Energy, Advanced Tech Corporation Malaysia and AMTI, United Electrical Specialists Incorporated, PT Cerna Corporation, Excel First Review and Training Center, Allied Telesis Philippines Incorporated, Panasonic Business, Infinite Care Technology Solutions, and Sieg State Power. Thank you so much for sponsoring this event. Once again, maraming salamat po sa inyong patuloy na walang humpay sa pagsuporta sa ating minamahal na organisasyon. We are immensely grateful and we will be forever thankful to all of you. This day has been very long yet fruitful day, and since I will still be your moderator for tomorrow, let me say kita-kita ulit tayo mga ka-IECEP. Maraming salamat po ulit sa inyong lahat.